本当？見えないでしょ？どこにいるのかな？見えないよ。
What's good, Internet? It is Friday, April 30th. We made it. And you're listening to Waypoint Radio, episode 393. I'm your host, Austin Walker. Joining me today, Cado.
What's up? What's up?
I hear you like swishing
Clink.
a drink around. Clink. Time for some nice ice water to kick off the last day of the month.
Yeah, water. Sure, that's what that is.
That's right.
That's
Real
just
Rob
iced
Zachary
coffee.
energy.
Yeah.
Making a mixed drink at night.
It's just iced coffee.
I think the mixed drink is
always
iced
eat
coffee.
Yeah.
Putting some coffee in
It doesn't
some
matter.
ice.
Doesn't matter what time of year it is. I'm having iced coffee. I love
That's
iced
fair.
coffee.
That's fair. Also joining us, Patrick Klepek. How you doing,
Sitting here
Patrick?
reading the Steam page for Lumberjack's Dynasty. Lumberjack's Dynasty is a mix of forestry, logging, business, and life simulation with role-playing elements. You start as at a rundown logging camp, which you slowly take over from your aunt and uncle as you restore it to its former glory. Along with cutting timber and hauling it to the mill for further production, you will enjoy various quests that will help you improve not only your business, but your character skills. And then I've been reading this. Cameron Kunzelman tweeted this out, and he's like trying to convince himself to pay the $20 to buy it.
$20.
And then,
Someone needs to.
sitting here reading the reviews, this one, this game is far from ready to release from early access. There's a ton of bugs and seems like they stopped developing it halfway to being finished. Prices listed in the games are wrong. Jumping trees have knocked me miles in the air and permanently disabled my equipment. They use the same NPC several times. You make more money doing everything other than logging. It is a very repetitive grind.
That's very good.
I'm going to download Lumberjack's Dynasty because it does not cost me $20 to do so, and maybe I'll report back.
You got to explore what it means to be a lumberjack. Well, I don't have anything nearly as exciting going on as all that.
Nearly.
No,
do flower. We need a flower update.
Oh, in NieR? Well, if I could just let me just do this real quick.
Austin is turning his webcam to his. I didn't realize that's just in front of you. That's very close to you at all times.
Well, yeah, my living situation's stupid. There's only you can only see one flower here. I feel.
Yeah, I see. Like,
there you
there's
go. You can see more here. I can't really give you a flower update. I can, but it's like.
But what choice did you make? So we left off with
I
you.
need to like give you like a. I need to give like a. Sorry, I'm moving back to where it was. I need to. It's complicated, Patrick. Oh my God.
It's complicated. Hold on. Before you explain what's complicated, let's like previously on.
Previously on Austin's
we
flower
left you.
adventure.
We left you with you could just go turn in these seeds that we're going to produce.
That was the hope. The hope was I would get enough seeds. The question was, would I get?
Would you get 10? Would you get 11?
Or
and then
9?
Could you say right?
Right. And if I could get 11, what 11 was going to open up for me was the possibility of chasing the lunar tear, which is a white flower that's narratively important for in the world of NieR Replicant,
but also to Kanye specifically.
To Kanye specifically, and also to
you said
Yona,
Kanye, and I was like, "What?"
to Kanye specifically.
Well, if he watch, he's gonna drop an album called Lunar Tears.
Absolutely, yes.
Yeah.
That's the new track on the Rick Ross album that he's on. So it's important narratively. There's an achievement for making one. It's very hard to make one. It's like a 2% chance that it clicks or something like that. If you plant the right flowers next to each other, and those flowers also have a rare chance of being grown. And also. It doesn't matter. Like, it doesn't matter. It doesn't, there's no quest, there's no dialogue around it as far as I know, which is, if you get into the NieR fandom, you learn that one of the ways in which the fandom separates good content from bad content is, does your party talk about it when it happens? Which I understand, because the party in this game rules, and it is a reward to hear, like, Grimoire Weiss and Emil and kind of like talk to each other about a thing. And
well,
like,
also that's like a better reward than just like, here's 60,000 gold. That
I don't care.
Also, people explaining to me that frequently the argument to do a side quest is, oh, you'll get gold. And then what I've heard from other people, because you want to get gold in order to buy all the weapons, so you can get the final.
But I have so much money, Patrick.
But also what I've heard from multiple people is like, actually the objects that you collect and then turn in, if you were to sell them, would net you more money than actually completing the quest.
100%. 100%. Like, undoubtedly. Which again is just like, what is being done? What are you doing? What am I supposed to take away from that, Yoko Taro?
My takeaway was that it's like an old game that he constantly says we had no money to make, and they had to like frequently budget around.
I mean, I think a lot about the fact that you unlock extra endings via collecting all the weapons is the thing you need to get ending C and D, and that's not really, I mean, like there's a when you get ending B, it goes like, if you collect all the weapons, you might get a chance to do a thing.
It's like, it's extremely nothing PS2. Profound. It's not like a character comes from the sky.
Correct.
And says,
it's not diegetic. It's not like, if only I had all the weapons, I could do this.
I could be more powerful.
It's not that. But like, it's almost like there's lots of stuff that's formally true about this game that is not narratively true, which we'll get into if we get to do a spoiler cast.
We are going to do. Okay, we're working our way.
We're
towards
working on
cast.
it. And we'll tackle all that stuff. But like the weapons thing is interesting. It's like, why is it tied to it? And part of it, you could do the reading about like, yes, it's about having all that power, or about like what that means, blah 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 blah. But really, it's a holdover from the way PS2 games worked all the time. Like, this is like, Drakengard does this because to unlock weapons was a difficult thing and you wanted to reward players. And this whole era of games did this shit. This is why, like, you played Tekken for the endings if you were someone who, like, played single-player Tekken.
Hell yeah, right.
Exactly, right? And so, like, collectible endings was a thing at this point in time, in a way. And Yoko just ran with it in this way, which is interesting.
Also, you have to, like, fill a space. Like, it's a big area. If you were,
yes.
Yes. That's it. I think, like, if you were to if you could take all of those extra dialogue bits, sometimes just sprinkle them into the main narrative. The game's already like, it's not short. Like,
it's not short.
If you just main line the route A story, like the beginning end, you're still looking at a 13 to 15 hour game. You do the stuff on top of that.
And that's not it's not counting side quests even. It's not counting the good side quests. Let's say, right? If you do the good side quests, that extends out to 25 hours or something. Which, like, does make me think. I mean, I have so many thoughts about this game. So I've beaten this game at this point, like fully.
So you did. So you just wait. So you. Hold on. Like, can I guess what happened,
Patrick?
Here?
I cannot answer this question to the degree that I want to without giving spoiler warnings. Like, truly cannot. And also, there was a meaningful journey here, but like, it would require us to spoil. There are ways to tell the story, and there are ways to tell the story, and I don't know if we should just wait to tell my gardening story.
I think we should wait. Okay, all right.
Until I can take you on the journey. I could take you on part of the journey, but it would require me to spoil ending D, which I know you're working towards.
No.
So let's wait. Until
you're in route spoiler, and we'll save that for.
There is stuff that I can talk about. There is like some stuff that I think is like interesting about this game that we can still talk about. You finished Route A, which is the first route.
Yeah. So like, you don't have a choice on like how the main, like, the game ends the first time. There's just a beginning, a middle, and an end, and then it opens up. It's like interesting how transparent about it is. Just like you finish it, and then it like gives you a chance to save, and like there's just a stamp that goes under your save. It's like A, like done. I forget how that's communicated in Automata.
I think that's the same.
Is that also the same way?
Because I remember being frustrated that when you get endings C and D in that, you're loading a previous save and making a different choice, I want to say, in order to go down C
as opposed to
D.
just like it's stacking and like checkboxing a single
and so I remember
save.
getting like ABD or something like that and being like, well,
that would be a thing that really bugs you. I know.
So yeah, it is what it is. I am who I am. Anyway, so you finished Route A, which is an arc of the game.
And I think I've like the one of the spoilers.
We should again say spoilers, right? Yeah.
Yeah, if you don't want to know anything mild about the game, I feel like at this point though, if we're touching on NieR, we're like dancing around.
Yes.
We're being respectful of people who are playing it, alongside, the time that we're spending with it. But yeah, if you don't want to know anything, go, skip ahead to Pokemon Snap. Yeah, so I finished that. Like really sad, like mostly satisfying. Like I could see like finishing that and being like, I mean, I want to play more, but like it like in its initial route, like tells a
story,
a really compelling, heartwarming story of, you know, friendship and family and sacrifice. I do believe like the main spoiler I was trying to suppress out of my brain from having watched a lore video for this, which is like related to a big element of world building of like the nature of, you know, something that's like happening in the game. I'm pretty sure like that's it. Like I like lost all the other finer details like that. Those cannot be recovered from my brain. But like that one big like revelation.
You hit it now.
I was like, oh, I was pretty sure that it was almost one of those like, I knew it in my heart. If I thought about it long enough, I knew that's what it was. And then when it occurred, I was like, all right, yeah, I guess I was kind of hoping it was something different just so I could be surprised, but no. And it's still very good and like recontextualizes a lot of your actions in really interesting ways. But yeah, so I jumped briefly in to Route B, or as we were putting in the pre-show, and I never know what makes it into the post-show, but like that, Yoko Taro writes a book. It like transitions into, I mean, this is a game that already plays with text. You know, it was interesting talking about Fantasian a couple of weeks back, and how that game has these specific cutscene sequences in which it removes itself from the like traditional JRPG dialogue boxes and switches to a narrative format so that it can use the extra sort of like tools at your disposal when you're doing kind of like proper, you know, capital W writing. And this game has some of that in like, you know, the Forest of Myth text adventure stuff. But then in this scenario, like it starts out, it shifts to a different character's perspective. And it starts out, I'm thinking like, oh, you're just going to get like a page or two of like kind of flowery, like more detailed text. Like, no, like it spends like a significant, like half an hour, 40 minutes. And my guess is I don't know, I haven't played further in that like that's going to be a format that continues throughout the Route B. But I really liked it. Like I was like, damn, you know, game writing is different than like novel writing. Those are different formats. One does not necessarily mean that you'll be good at the other. But like Yoko Taro was like really good at it. Like I was like, I have this giant 4K TV next to my desk, and I'm just looking at giant ass words for 40 minutes, clicking X to go through them, and was riveted. I mean, I think it does a good job with like the presentation in terms of like how it, like the music is really evocative, and it like helps set the tone. But it's just really good. Like I really enjoyed reading it, and like came away thinking that like I would just, if you wanted to write like a book in the world of NieR, like I would sit down and read 350 pages of that, like not a problem.
So the thing is, like, there is a lot of collections of short stories and stuff out there where there is like, you could go read, there are, I think it's called Grimoire NieR is the name of the collection that's out there. Which that has 10 short stories, but also some like art and stuff like that. And a lot of that stuff is just online, and like I just need to spend the time to like go through and read those at this point, because a lot of that is from characters in the world. It's major plot beats from a different perspective. It's stuff that's like in the world but is not a focal point in the game, for instance. I also think stuff like for instance, there's the shipwreck arc, right? That originates as one of these short stories. And
interesting.
And then it got turned into a new piece of content, or I guess it was a piece of cut content from the first game, probably got turned into a short story because the kind of narrative work had already been done, and now is back into the game finally, which is interesting. I'm curious what you're going to think about Route B. Route B is without getting into too much detail, I think maybe this is worth saying, is like, I think Automata set different expectations for me than what I would have had if I'd played this game a decade ago.
Right.
In Automata, which has been out for a few years now, so I don't mind saying this, the routes are additive in a real way. Route B is just Route A again with some different context. This game does that also, but it's a little less smooth about why you're getting that context. Stuff like the novel bits, the short story bits are just kind of dropped in, which is like, it's totally fine. Like, it's just like, I feel like by the end of Route A, you're like, okay, these are my characters, this collection of characters I care about, and I'm happy to have the camera move into their interiority and like tell their story a little bit. But in Automata, Route B is like, this is this one person's story, or it's the same story you already saw, but you're seeing it from someone else's perspective with added context because of the abilities he has, right? If you remember that shit with 9S.
Mm-hmm.
Here
Worst combat.
Yeah, we can and should get into that during our spoiler. We should have that conversation for sure. I
meant Automata.
Oh. Okay.
When you do like the character shifts.
No, that's right. Yeah, but I mean, we should do that comparison. We should talk about what how that all maps out in our tastes. But the stuff in B here will often add very similar context, which you'll see very quickly, Patrick. Like,
gotcha.
I don't mind spoiling this because this is like the premise of Route B, is just like Automata, you hear stuff from enemies. You learn the names of enemies. You learn what their motivations are, and they all have motivations. But the game never really does the thing that then Automata does in the final arcs, which is push forward really and say Route C and D are what comes after that initial story. Instead, they are again you're playing I played through all this at this point. Going back through that same stuff for Route C and Route D, it's just
it's just a camera moving around again to a different perspective.
It's not even.
Shift.
Route C and D is just you have a different ending available. Just mainline through the story. Just go and you're so powerful that it's nothing. Do you know what I mean? I mean, It is something. It's a few hours of playtime to get back to the very end. And then you could save right before the end and make a different choice to get ending D if you choose ending C first, you know, like, so that's not like it's not that bad, but it is not, it's interesting to see this as a foundation for then later he was like, okay, or that team was like, let's expand on those ideas and continue to.
This can be a form. It's
this
not
can be a form. Right.
And
also,
like,
there is an idea of cyclicality in this and cycles and repetition. I mean, there's certainly a lot of repetition in going through the junk heap. I went through that junk heap so many times, but it's also not, it's not as central or as like kind of neatly placed in the lore of the world as it is in Automata. And that's fine. Like, I'm not saying this game needed to be that. And in many ways, it's the opposite of Automata because it's like, I care so much about these people who are nice and kind in their hearts and who have had rough lives and are like coming together.
I think I haven't seen the conclusion of a lot of these storylines and the different endings. I do think I like the core cast of characters a lot more.
They're nice people. They're good people.
Like they're people that I want to hang out with. Whereas
absolutely.
But whereas like with Automata, like the big picture and like tickled my brain in a different way. That I'll be curious why I land on both of those by the end.
I also really am interested in talking through Automata as almost a follow-up to, I mean, obviously it's a follow-up to this game, to NieR, but like a much more critical take on protagonists and on especially like dudes who think that the point of their life is that like the women around them should recognize their heroism and relent and do what they want, which is like the 9S story because he's like a punk ass, he's just an asshole. And that character feels in some ways like a response even to the way NieR is written and to the way that like the game ends up falling into very interesting and frustrating paternalism as the game kind of continues, which you'll see. Not frustrating, but just like I like fucked up characters. I like it when a character's fucked up, a little weird, a little twisted. I like it when characters are compromised, and so that's part of the reason why I like these characters more as people. They're my friends, and I would die for them. But I think I've come out feeling like I like Automata more because it positions characters against each other in ways that like tickle my brain. And that's an interesting place to have wound up, I feel. I'm curious what you're going to end up thinking about routes B and C, D, and E. I don't know if you'll get through them all. I don't know if we're gonna end up just linking you some shit, some videos.
Well, yeah, we are trying to schedule out like a proper spoiler cast with we just say with Dia, who who reviewed the game, and so that the three of us can chat through it as like a follow up to the Automata one that we did with Alex, right? That was with Alex Navarro. That was really fun. And yeah, it's just I told Rob, I was like, I think I'm just gonna have to like take a day. Like normally I really try to do most of like my game playing at night, that has its, that's a separate discussion. But it was like, I think I might just need like 8 hours.
If you ignore the side quests and the gardening,
and I will, you know what, like, you know what really put it in the ground for me was, I think I'm curious how this, like, I think this is how the game treats it, like, mechanically. And so, like, just before I finish the game, go to the castle, I had planted a bunch of wheat, and because the wheat was like, I believe it's one of like the higher price things you can sell. So I was just like, fuck it. The only reason I'm doing this is so that I can purchase the weapons. Like I'm just going to plant a ton of wheat, but wheat also takes a long time. It has to go through a ton of progressions in order to be, so you can harvest it. And I was like, so I planted it, and then I was like, I don't know when I'll get back to the game to finish that route. And then I just had some time, and I was like, all right, well, I guess I'm not, that wheat's gone. Like, it's fine. I'll deal with it later. I've also like bought at this point like 76% of the weapons, so it's like I'm in a pretty decent place to probably get the rest of those on a subsequent route. But so I finished the game, come into Route B, and then an hour and change into that, you can start walking around again in the world. And I went back to my house, and all the wheat was there, but it was all fucking dead. So I think it's interesting that there's permanence to that gardening.
Yes.
That carries over in a way that like the timeline absolutely does not like line up.
This is the thing I will say. I finished Route C, and then I had a choice even again at that point where I could have gone back to my garden and been like, I'll finish Route D a different day. It would have meant replaying the final dungeon, or not replaying replaying the lead up to the final dungeon, which is going up that tower. You know what I'm talking?
Very tired of going up that tower. I've only done it
jumping
twice.
over those boxes, and that's my least favorite dungeon in the game is that tower for sure. Junk Heap is my favorite because despite it being the one I've run the most,
you have become Junk Heap.
I've become Junk Heap. Yeah, Twitter user @Junk Heap. That's my new alt. Please don't go bother whoever actually is at twitter.com/junkheap. I'm sure it's a real person.
Junkheap325 is my new private.
Junkheap has been his account suspended, which is extremely funny.
Turns out Junkheap tried to storm the Capitol.
Yeah. Junkheap stormed the castle with a sign about the Shadow Lord, and everyone was like, yikes. God, the Shadow Lord. It's so funny how much this game is just like doing action RPG adventure game like shit to the degree that the bad guy is just called the Shadow Lord. Like,
I know.
Just go to the Desert Kingdom, go to the Forest Kingdom, go to the Ocean Kingdom, go fight the Shadow Lord. Video games. What do we got to say about them?
And yet, it's like, like all this other stuff.
And yet, yeah.
So that's when I gave up. That's when I gave up on gardening. Was just that's like fair. I'm good.
You're gonna make the money you need to buy those weapons. I promise. You're not. Yeah,
I did like a handful. Like I looked up the side quests for like that were the best for money. Like I went and got the crates.
Yeah.
I spoiled I didn't realize that depending on how you resolve the crate quest, you can get a lot more money.
Which is the crate quest?
There's a woman that asks you to go find like. She's like, I lost 3 of my crates.
Oh,
I really need you to not look inside.
Yeah.
And every time you find one of the crates, which is just like a an ocean or a river, it's like, yo, you want to look inside? And twice I said no. And then as I was like trying to see what quests I could resolve before I went to the castle, I looked it up and it was like, yo, you make like twice as much money if you look inside that shit and turn her into the cops. And I was like,
yeah,
all right, well,
damn, you narked her out. See, if you don't nark her out, she puts in a word at the pharmacy who gets you that vaccine
you get a discount,
earlier.
Right?
You get a little discount and some extra items. Yeah, It's nice.
I took the gold so I could buy the 7th spear that I'm not going to use.
Yeah, exactly. That's the thing. It's like, in general, it's very funny because like you could spend that money on on items you're not going to use from the pharmacy, or you can spend that money on weapons you're not going to use from the weapon shop.
Yep.
You know, my least favorite thing about this game is that for the majority of my final few runs, I was using a very ugly weapon because it was my most powerful weapon, and it was upsettingly bad two-handed sword that just is like a black obelisk with lava. It just looks. I think it literally is a major weapon from Drakengard or something. And if it isn't, then I don't know why the fuck it's in here. It's so hideous. It's called Fool's Lament, and it's just not good. It's just not what I want my character. I would sometimes equip a different weapon to like switch to before a cutscene started. Just so that would be the one in the cutscene, or like to run around. Like I had a running around sword. I was like, wow, this thing looks so fucking goofy. I don't want to just put a katana on my back or whatever. It's fine. Anyway,
this game needs like whatever what do they call it in MMOs when you can
I need like a glamour. I need know like absolutely. So
like I like this katana, but I actually need it to hit like a broadsword.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, apparently the description and appearance are a reference to Drakengard and the main protagonist Chaim. I don't know how to pronounce the main protagonist.
I didn't realize that I have a feature. I don't think it's going up this week. I think it's going up next week. I interviewed John Riccardi, who I know a long time from back when he worked at EGM, but for the past decade and change, he's been running 8.4, the localization outfit, and they did the localization on the original NieR, Drakengard, and in doing that learned I didn't realize like the last Drakengard came out after NieR. In my head, it was like, oh, Drakengard finished, then he did NieR, then he did NieR. I was like, no, like he did NieR, and then did the final Drakengard game.
Drakengard 3, right? Came out in
interesting. It's a really
2010s.
The feature that I wrote is mostly us just talking about like working with Yoko Taro. I'll promote it when I actually know that's going up maybe next week. But it was a lot of fun. Yeah,
I want to say there's like, if it's not a lunar tier, there's like a very important big white flower also in Drakengard 3.
Sure.
I just are we going to go down this route? Are we going to end up all learning about Drakengard?
I mean, I will say that Austin and I have gone as far as looking up how long it would take to beat the first route of a Drakengard, and like, could that be part of a charity stream in the future where him and I at like 10 p.m. open a 6-pack and like, here we go until Rob strolls in with some coffee at 7 in the morning and tells us to go home.
That sounds like the life, honestly.
It sounds awesome.
It sounds awesome.
Post-vaccine, what do you want to do? I want to get together with some motherfuckers and stream Drakengard 1 all night.
For the PS2, yeah,
That's what I want to do.
I've heard that game is like extremely dark in a way that like on top of just like not being particularly good to play outside of like
couldn't we like bust that up in an emulator and just like turn on infinite health or something? I feel like there's a way to.
Yeah, that's a good idea. That's what we should. That's what we should do.
Because we know what we're there for, right?
Yeah, I want the story and I want the music and I want the characters and
it's like Muso adjacent, isn't it? Yeah. So it just
button through. Totally.
Tell us, like people like that, or we're gonna spend the next 10 years like waiting for Square to slowly remake these games, but I just don't know. I haven't played these games, but it seems like you would have to do a lot more work on those games. You couldn't. They did quite a bit of work on NieR Replicant, but I don't know. I mean, maybe you could just do like a collection that's just like the Drakengard collection, and like, hey, you can play it at 4K, but it's still gonna play the way it played when it came out in 2005.
Dragon Dragoon was the original name. The thing about it is like NieR is fundamentally a game that I think people might not love the repetition or whatever, but it's very in line with what games looked like in 2010.
Oh,
right?
Yeah, for sure.
This is just, it's a big open world action RPG, and that's comprehensible. People didn't know what to put
in those spaces. And so it was, we need you to, we want people to go from point A to point B. And so it really only stands out like because like it stands in contrast to the narrative being so strong. Right. So.
But in contrast, I feel like the sort of like chapter based, level based stuff in Drakengard might not be as like easily received by a wide audience, and that feels like something that Square would be a little squeamish about. It's why when we were talking about it, off mic, Patrick, I was saying I wonder if what they end up doing is making a game set in the beginning of NieR, Drakengard ending E route timeline that tells sort of the prequel story, or maybe they just make a different Drakengard game. But, maybe they just make another game
that is a
in
way
that
of
world
like telling,
that is a way of
like
telling
you can
that
weave
story.
in those stories
Yeah.
through side quests and like novels that you find. It like gets people primed on the Drakenverse. When you just like quietly pasted something, and my response was, "Is the implication here that in modern Japan a dragon just showed up?" And it's like, yeah, that's the premise of Drakengard. I was like, all right,
that's the premise of NieR. We just don't talk about it. The dragon doesn't show up on screen. You read those weapon stories, it makes it very clear a dragon showed up. It's like not in any cutscenes. You know what I mean? Like we don't see the dragon, but a dragon showed up and then everyone got sick. Then some people made some other different choices that you'll have to beat the game to find out what those were. Bad choices, I think. I think the stuff that happened to try to save people did not maybe go the way.
No, it's lots of people making bad choices in Drakengard and NieR, it seems like.
Yes. Anyway, there's our NieR minute. We'll be back with at this point, I feel like everything I have to say, that's not true. I could still talk about NieR.
Yeah, I said that maybe things would come up, but I would feel fairly confident in saying we will mostly put a pin in bringing it up here unless, like as I work my way through the routes, maybe there'll be like a discussion topic, but I think probably check back in the next week or two. We're trying to set up time.
I will say, here's the last thing I will say is having now beaten Route E, I truly cannot imagine what it would have been like to be an OG NieR fan and get this route today as like a reward for 11 years of fandom and like waving this banner and being a real one before
like
it was
in a
popular.
good way or in a bad way?
I think in a good way, but it's hard for me to know because I'm not that fan.
Not that person.
Right? Like I for me, it would be like if there was a secret, a new ending for Dragon's Dogma dropped. Do you know what I mean? And I'd be like, what the fuck? And I might hate it. Or I might love it. I don't know. I like Route E. I like ending E a lot. I really enjoyed it.
Is E new?
E is completely new.
Okay.
E is not completely new. I already said this a little bit. You replay the beginning of the game, which is actually the final thought that I have about this game is I actually think this is a game that insists on the idea that revisiting a text, whether that's a game or literally words on a screen, but revisiting them is valuable, and that even without new context, you get something from seeing a cutscene again, from seeing a conversation. Because there's stuff that happens throughout all of the later routes where it's just the same shit, but it hits different because you have the full context. I think that's an interesting element of it. But yeah, I already said in Route E, you start the game over and then at a certain point it diverges. And when that point happens, like I popped, and I cannot imagine how someone who had played this game for the first time 11 years ago and loved these characters popped. And then at every point through that thing, there are these really high beats of just like super excitement as something cool happens. Connections to other parts of the Drakengard franchise that are, whatever, the larger Taro-verse, the larger Yoko-verse. Yeah. I never know whether to use, so this is the funny thing about Yoko Taro that I don't know if this has come across for people. Yoko Taro is like the only Japanese developer that I know who uses his name in the order that he would use it in Japan in the West. So in Japan, surnames come first. So like we say Hideo Kojima, but like if you were writing his name in Japanese, it would be Kojima Hideo or Hideo. We don't do that with Yoko Taro. Yoko is his surname. And so Taro is his given name. But we say Yoko Taro, and it's just like, it's kind of amazing that he managed to pull it off. I think it's because he kind of treats it like a mononym. He kind of treats it like the artist known as Yoko Taro.
Yeah, would you be shocked if tomorrow he like came out and was like, actually like has not been my name all along.
100% would
been
believe
a long
it.
con.
If you look at the way
this is Route E in my life.
Yes, 100%.
He takes off the mask.
Yes. Anyway, the thing is, like, I genuinely think that there's really cool stuff there. So if you're someone who is like pushing through this game as an old fan, I think that you should probably keep pushing through and get to that Route E, because there's some wild shit in there. And also, I'm just curious for old school fans, maybe for our podcast, our spoiler cast, which again we don't have a date for yet, but in the coming weeks, write in to gaming@vice.com and let us know what you think about Route E if you're an old head, because I just want to know how it hits. I want to know if it hits different, if you've loved these
like
characters for a
your,
decade.
Your fandom.
You know? So, yeah, there's NieR. Should we talk about Pokemon Snap? Should we take a break and come back
Let's
and
take
talk
a
about
break and come
Pokemon
back.
Snap? Sounds good.
Snap into it.
All right, we are back with a Snap. Cado,
Hi.
you wrote a review of new Pokemon Snap.
Yeah.
Does it have the
Pokemon
new? It
Snap.
doesn't have the Nintendo new, does it?
It's a new.
But you know what I mean. It doesn't have like the. It doesn't have like the new with all the little.
It does.
You know the new.
The new.
The
The little lines around it.
The little lines, the little color lines.
It is
around
called
the word new.
the
No.
formal name is New Pokemon Snap, right?
Yeah. Yes. Yes.
It is,
The logo
it is,
includes
yeah.
the word new. It's just red. There's no.
But it doesn't have the
lines.
new Nintendo 3DS little lines that
No.
make it seem like it's a party going on in there.
No party. New Pokemon Snap is, all right. It's a fun Pokemon Snap, of which there's only ever been one other one of, so there's not much to work with there.
Is that true? There's only ever been one other Pokemon Snap?
Yep.
I feel like Pokemon Snap should be like Nights, and it should have had a special holiday release. Christmas Pokemon Snap. Or
Christmas
something.
Nights
sure.
is better than the OG
This is
Nights
what
anyway.
I'm saying.
Better,
So-
the soundtrack to Christmas Nights. I don't know how that hits to an outsider, but man, I listen to the Christmas Night soundtrack all the fucking time.
It's
when I was
very
young.
funny, Patrick.
Love it.
Anyway,
Not even like Christmas music, but the Christmas Night soundtrack. Put it on.
Amazing.
Hey family,
this is what
come
we
down.
do. Yeah, now it's time to
it's-
open gifts.
Yuji Naka's in this house.
Yeah, Pokemon Snap, if you ask a lot of people who enjoyed the first one, Pokemon Snap should have been a franchise unto its own. Like, we should have been having one of them per like console, the way that certain other franchises happen. And it's just like
You said that with a lot. You didn't say that with disdain, but those words feel like they
Yeah,
carry
I
a lot
mean,
of certain other
Those
franchises.
people who keep saying they should make a new Pokemon Snap.
Oh, I went the
No.
other way. I went like, unlike certain other franchises, unlike Aguilar.
But it's been 21 years since the original game came out. That's
so long.
It's so fucking long. It's so
That's
long.
a whole ass person.
And as far as I can tell, a year hasn't gone by when there hasn't been like a small upswell where people remember Pokemon Snap and go, hey, why don't they make another one of those for 21
Yes.
years straight? So,
I want like a Wes Anderson style, like very high detail cross section, montage of different people over 21 years
Yes.
saying, hey, why don't they make a new Pokemon Snap across the last 21 years through the war on terror,
Yeah.
through the Obama administration, through the Arab
continued
Spring.
war on terror.
Yeah, exactly.
my
You're
God.
right, though. I think
Right.
everyone I know likes Pokemon. Not everyone I know. So many people have a deep fondness for
Yeah.
the original Pokemon.
But I think that's
Snap.
also become like a burden and a curse for the which has made me very I don't know like I'd be curious what your experience was with the first one. Like me and my friends were obsessed with Pokemon Snap.
Yeah.
That game when that came out, it was around the height of Pokemon as a pop culture like phenomenon, like and it's like original and like it's sort of like original spin up. And that like just we spent so many times like going through the carousel of Pokemon Snap with my friends. We would get the pictures printed out at Toys R Us or Blockbuster or like wherever those kiosks were. Like, wasn't it that you could like bring in the memory card, then you would slip that in, and then you could get those printed out.
Those
like
printed out at Blockbuster. So the one big feature they're missing this time around.
I don't. So it's not. It's not
well,
actually. You can purchase an accessory to like. I saw the Amazon link go out yesterday from
a printer
Mr.
for the Switch?
Wario. I don't know the mechanics of how it works. But there's a Pokemon. There's a Pikachu branded. Look up Wario 60. Yeah. Austin, look up Wario 64's Twitter while I continue telling this story. But it. I also want to say it's a game that none of my friends owned though, because we also recognized that there wasn't actually a ton of value in it. There wasn't a whole lot to do. So it was the quintessential, hey, let's go pick something up from the Blockbuster or the Family Video was the other like Midwest chain. Like, yeah, get Pokemon Snap. Like that's like something to do this weekend. And like, then we'll have done everything there is to do it. So like, I say all that to like set up my concern and fear over a new Pokemon Snap, which is, that's a game a lot of people played when they were very young. It was shallow when it came out, was kind of a gimmick. And I do think that in some ways informed why Nintendo was hesitant to return to it, because it was a question of like, well, what even is a new Pokemon Snap?
Right.
And so I guess I turn that to you then, like on like where you came out on the original, and then like where this one lands, because it doesn't sound like a reinvention, but I'm curious where it lands in terms of like what it thinks a new Pokemon Snap is in 2021.
Totally. I mean, I also didn't own it, but that was because also I didn't even have an N64, so it was like the one thing.
So it was not like a discounted game because it was short and shallow. It was still like $70 or whatever.
You could, depending on what you considered finished, but you could finish that game in 3 hours. Yes. I just watched a Let's Play of it, and it was like 2 hours and 45 minutes. So it was just one of those things though. When it happened, there was Pokemon fever was at its height. Everyone I knew that had an N64 was bringing in the fucking stickers to school. So like, it was the one time I finally convinced my parents to let me rent an N64 from the Blockbuster along with this one game. And like,
where you had to put down the big deposit, right?
It was a big fucking deal. It was a big fucking deal.
Because renting the machine was not that expensive.
No.
But you had to put down a financial deposit of like, I don't know, like $100 or something.
Yeah,
I think
something
it was
like that.
more than that even. Yeah. Because like, what if you just leave with the system?
Right.
What if you just never return
it's
it?
somewhere around the
money
cost
back?
of whatever the actual system
and
was
that
at
was
the time.
Yeah. My parents would not, like, it was I remember the first time we did like the deposit and rental was we visited like my grandmother, and my parents were like, you're not bringing like your fucking console with. And then I managed to convince my grandmother to like go to the Blockbuster and rent one. And she was okay with doing the deposit, but my parents were like never okay. They're like, that's way too much money.
Yeah.
Like, what if you break that shit? And I was like, yeah, that's, I didn't understand at the time. I look back and go like, yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
No, I mean, I was real big into Pokemon, and so they were like, fine, this one time, but this is it. This isn't becoming normal, and it didn't. That was literally the one time until like years later we could finally get like used N64. But like that was how big it was to me as a child. Was like, it was worth like having this fight, like making it the one
call
time
in the favor,
exactly,
so to speak. You're going to spend your parental social capital
on this. And like,
my grade's been good. Listen, you know.
And a lot of it was because like, even as a child, I like had this weird expectation with like, because Pokemon was like one of the first RPGs I ever played, the like way that it abstracted things by having like random encounters, like you meet Pokemon in like only in the grass. You don't see them as sprites on the game. Like other video games I played, everything that you interacted with was its own sprite in like whatever overworld or whatever, right? Like the Goombas in Mario are there, you just stomp on them, right?
There's one layer of kind of metaphysical or ontological, depending on how you frame it, like truth.
Right.
It's the thing that's happening.
Right, exactly.
And that's it.
And as a kid, I was like always like, shit, I really wish I could see the Pokemon, like, and see them running around and like, so like seeing my friends' photos of the Pokemon like being in space was like mind blowing, and like this like, oh my god, I can't wait until this is what Pokemon is. Little did I know that literally until 2019, until Pokemon Sword and Shield would be the first time a mainline Pokemon game attempted to put Pokemon in like 3D space.
And everyone loved the way that happened, right?
No,
Everyone was big into that game.
You know, it was all right.
Well, there was the
it was
battle
a good
game, though,
first
right?
try.
Like, Stadium art, like the Pokemon Stadium was
good
also
point. Stadium. That was the big. That was the appeal of Stadium.
Right.
I remember being
Totally.
like, I would absolutely like rent Stadium for that same thing,
Right.
that same feeling of like, I want to see them do the thing.
Right.
I want to see Pikachu do Thundershock.
Yes, totally. But like,
But that's not them living out in the world.
right?
That's
no,
them
it's not,
fighting.
No.
Yeah, I get you.
And like,
I get you.
and like the version that we got in Sword and Shield was okay, but like it's a very first step into that kind of like building, which is what they're going with Legends.
Behaviors in Sword and Shields?
A little bit.
Sword and
A
Shield?
little bit. That's the thing.
Okay.
That's the thing. It's like it's very baseline. Like some of them run away because they're shy Pokemon. Some of them fucking bum rush you, like run at you full speed because they're aggressive. Things like that. But it's very, very light. There's literally more interaction in like Pokemon Snap, the original Pokemon Snap, as far as like things they do in the environment than there was in Sword and Shield's like open wild areas, they were called. So that's kind of like where what my like expectations were as far as like over the years, like seeing that Pokemon hasn't been pushing in this direction that I kind of wished it had as a child. But then understanding that like, you know, technology has changed a lot. Umurangi Generation came out last year.
Great game.
Great fucking photo game. Understanding that there are ways to build like recognition systems where like, you know, a game can take an image and understand what's in it. So like there's a lot of that that it's like, oh, it's been 20 years. This can be very different. And then it isn't. It is very much that original game.
Snap?
It is Pokemon Snap, but bigger. There's more narrative, you know, through line to it. There's like, which the original didn't have at all. It was just you opened it. Professor Oak was like, I need you to take some pictures, go take some pictures. And like, that was it. This one has, you know, there's a new Professor Mirror. He runs what's the word for it? It's Lens. Lens is what it's called, is the acronym for it. I think it's environmental natures and science. No,
wait,
laboratory.
Lentils?
Laboratory. Lentil is the name of the region that you're in, the lentil, but LEN, like lens, lental, TAL, lentil.
I
and
gotcha.
it's the laboratory for for environmental and natural sciences. Lens is his laboratory. And he's doing an ecological survey of this region, which has been largely untouched by humans. And has like, there's like one surviving record of like 100-year-old like explorer like came through and wrote a book about it, right? Like that's the only other time that humans have been through this region. So like there's like,
sounds great. Sounds like the Pokemon world's doing better than our world, where this
right,
place
like
would be absolutely
just
covered in extractive technologies. Yeah.
And well, to be fair, I say mostly because the first track, so like, you know, in case you've never touched or seen Pokemon Snap is an on rails photography game. You go through these maps that are, you know, you're on rails, you're on a single track. Sometimes every once in a while there is kind of a choice where you can branch paths in this one, which is fun. But the first track in this game is a nature preserve that they've built next to the research center. So they're already starting to do that thing of like, well, you know, we can't just leave the nature alone. We're going to build walls and spaces around it to delineate the differences here because we are now moving in, which is a weird thing to think about in the Pokemon world. But the way that this game is different is mostly that it is more like the tracks each have both a day and a night version. each day or night version also has its own like level. So like the first time you go through, it's a level 1 track. You take pictures, you get scored on those pictures, and that score is experience points for that track basically. Once you hit level 2, things have changed. It kind of represents the like nature photography idea of like spending a lot of time in an area and understanding the movements of Pokemon and like being able to find new things as you're like, continued observation of the space makes it so that you can, see new things. So like it shuffles around where the Pokemon are. It adds some new Pokemon. Things kind of change over time. In this first track, like spoilers, I guess I'm gonna kind of spoil the first track. So I guess skip if you don't want anything else. If you like the first Pokemon Snap and think that a new one of those would be good, this game is gonna be good for you. It doesn't change so much, or it doesn't change a lot that the first one did. So, but this is one of the things where like it, as you level up, it like moves forward in time. So in the first one, there's like a Bidoof holding a stick in the first level. When you hit level 2 of that track, it started to build a dam. By the time you hit level 3, the dam is complete, and there's like a little Bidoof inside of it. And
okay,
so and the other thing that they've changed here is that you're actually kind of building, instead of just like an album of photos, where like the first one you like would take a picture. And then you would choose one per Pokemon type to show to Professor Oak, and then those would be like what your album is. This one kind of separates out like a personal album and like your photo decks is what they call it. So each Pokemon has an entry in the photo decks, and there are 4 photos that you're trying to capture for each Pokemon, 1 through 4 stars. 1 star is them just kind of being in space. They're not doing anything special.
Hey, here's the
Pikachu standing right.
Right,
there.
here's a Pikachu. I was trying to go deeper cut.
Sure.
I was trying to get to like a Wooper.
Yeah, here's a Wooper. Here's a Wooper standing like with its back to you, even like you can't even see its face. That's a like 1 star photo.
But the camera says it's a Wooper, so god damn it,
it's a Wooper.
You're gonna get 1 star.
Yeah.
Okay.
Here's a 2 star is usually like you've thrown an apple at it and it's eating the apple. Oh, look, it's doing an action that you've kind of like made it do. A 3 star is something like you've found it doing something specific to that Pokemon. Like, let's say I'm
a Charmander and I'm heating up.
Yeah, I'm breathing fire. I'm doing a move.
I'm breathing fire.
Like, doing flamethrower or whatever.
I'm roasting this apple to eat.
And then 4 star is like once in a lifetime, usually kind of interactions between 2 types of Pokemon. Like I'm a Charmander and I'm doing flamethrower at a Chansey or some, like none of this is real.
What did the Chansey do to earn that?
I don't know. Rolled around, I guess.
Rude.
Smiled wrong.
Sure. But that degree of interaction.
Yeah, yes. So before it was very much like you're just trying to like get good photos and it's fun to get photos, but now there's this kind of like structure around it where like, oh, I'm trying to fill out the page for this Pokemon, kind of the same way that in the mainline games, one of the like ways that you can play those games, and a lot of people do, is the want to collect every single one, right? This is leaning into that in a way that the original Snap didn't, and so now you've repeating those tracks not only unlocks new things on that same track because you're gaining experience every time. It's also like worthwhile to do because you have kind of different photo objectives that you're trying to hit now. And that kind of covers the structure of it. Like it otherwise kind of controls the same. There's a slight difference now where before there was the reticle didn't, it was always in the center. Now there's kind of like a weird dead area in the middle. There's a little square you can see where you can move the reticle around, and wherever the like last Pokemon that you put the reticle over, it kind of like does the when you take a photo with your camera and it like selects the faces, it puts a little square around the faces.
Yeah.
So now when you like put the reticle over a Pokemon, it like selects that Pokemon. And so if you snap a picture without zooming in or anything, that's now the subject of the photo. And this is important because if, let's say, there's a Pikachu and a Grookey sitting next to each other, and I put the reticle over the Grookey and take a picture, that is a picture of Grookey, and that's it. That Pikachu does not count. I cannot turn that in as a Pikachu picture. It's
don't love that.
Yeah, no. This is the part of like we are past this. Like technologically, I understand that both of those things are in the image, and I could use it for either one should I want. But no, you're making that decision. Yeah. You're making that. This would be fine if you could control how you're moving, but the whole point is like that you're on rails, and this is
you're not. You can't. That's the whole thing.
You're snapping things, and like you might miss stuff, and like the timing is important. But if you're also trying to then manage, this is what this photo is of, even though there's like 5 things in this photo. Like it just it's too much, and it like I almost liked the old method better, where it's just like whatever is in the dead center is gonna be it, because now it's like if I take that's like being zoomed out, right? Like that's like without hitting the zoom, and then when you zoom in, technically the reticle sticks to the center now when you're like in the like I'm taking a closer photo, but sometimes that if you had it on, like even if I had it on that Grookey in that photo and then I zoom in and I'm pointing it at the Pikachu, it still thinks it's the Grookey picture. Like where and when it snaps off is really like
that's deeply frustrating and annoying. Yeah.
And so like I end up taking a lot of not zoomed in photos, which if you remember the original Pokemon Snap is bad because one of the scores that you're getting
is about being like very close.
Yes, it's about the fucking size of the Pokemon in the image in the square.
In fact, it frequently was the case. It's like, who gives a shit what they're doing? You just want that Pokemon as close as possible.
Yeah,
and it's like,
Pokemon.
score.
God.
And so like there are, and like this mostly ends up being an issue in edge cases where there's like a lot of Pokemon of different types together. Most of the time they're like,
but like that should be a hype moment,
right?
That should be a moment where
like,
oh shit, there's a bunch of Pokemon here.
Yeah, there's 2 different Pokemon like, doing stuff, and I got both of them in one shot. That's sick.
No, sorry.
It'll give you points for the other Pokemon, but
I just can imagine like J. Jonah Jameson being like, "No, this is just a picture of Grookey."
Yeah,
and like, what are you talking about?
I need
like,
pictures
Jonah,
of Pikachu.
Pikachu's in the picture.
He's right there.
He's not central enough.
Exactly. Oh, I have to show you this shit. This is the most frustrating shit. Hold on. I tweeted about this yesterday when the embargo dropped. Look at this picture here. There are 2 Pokemon in this picture, technically.
No.
So this is a picture, a kind of zoomed in picture of a score bunny.
That's
taking
the center of the
dead center.
Is a beautiful photo of a beautiful score bunny. Score bunny is this kind of beautiful, fluffy, but kind of athletic, white rabbit Pokemon who's doing a little nap, doing a little snooze. Has like red toes, red ears, very adorable. That is a photo of Score Bunny.
Yeah, that's a photo of Score Bunny on top of a Torterra, which is kind of like a spiky turtle thing with a tree on its back.
It's a cool looking Pokemon.
Yeah,
I hadn't seen Torterra.
Torterra's cool. Torterra's cool, but I turned this photo into the professor.
But I wouldn't say this is a photo of a Torterra.
It said it was a photo. Score Bunny who? This is just a photo of the back of a Torterra, which makes it a really bad photo because
it's a bad
most
photo.
of the Pokemon is out of the frame, and B, not the thing that I was trying to get, which was of the Score Bunny.
That's very frustrating.
It's really just they can do better. I know this technology exists in the world, right? Like it just feels so. I mean, like I think they have a certain amount of either reverence or just like this idea that you have to make it that much like the original thing, that they didn't want to do a new method of like parsing these images. But it's been 20 years.
No,
like,
the thing is, I
would understand.
I can't imagine it's actually using the same shit from the N64. That feels like it would be more.
It's not.
Trouble
It's not.
than,
No, in the original, there was no way to set Like the thing I was talking about where it sets it was just like whatever
the focal point or whatever.
Yeah, it's just like whatever the center was over. So in the original, this photo would probably have
would have been a photo of Score Bunny.
Right?
Which would have been very valuable since Score Bunny didn't exist yet.
Right.
And you could have been the person on the playground who's like, hey, in 20 years, they're going to invent a rabbit that does sports.
Cado's going to the playground.
Yeah.
He's like,
yo, look at this shit.
God.
It's
like,
it's
that's
Pico Red.
The worst possible. My uncle works at Nintendo. Shit.
Yeah.
My uncle who works at Nintendo is the worst possible.
Yeah.
But the version of it that's like, I have information for video games that won't come out for 20 years.
Yeah, just wait.
So you can't do shit with it. Just wait. You'll remember. No, they won't. No one's gonna remember that you were right about Score Bunny. That's disappointing.
Yeah.
That's such a good illustration of it not really working the way it should.
Yeah. And again, it's like you kind of, after spending, I think I'm like 12 hours in or something, nearing the end game at this point, you kind of learn the ways to work around the like limitations of it, or like be careful about where that reticle's going ahead of time.
Of course.
It's just frustrating.
I think it's just hard. It is also hard that like you and I think especially fell in love with a different model of what a photography game could be
100%.
last year,
and like
around which like not just a different like the technology is different and it recognizes everything in the photo, but just the ways in which Umurangi is about looking at the world and like and finding compositions that you're interested in, and also just like doing the work of even the core mechanic of like take a photo of five of the bounties are both more specific than what it sounds like is happening here, but also more allow you to interpret in a more
I'm fine with this being a less interpretive system, because like nature
Pokemon
photography and like ecological surveys and things that are meant to like record the behaviors of animals is its own like kind of framing of what photography can be. Like there's a different use case here that exists in the world and like could be interesting to like take a look at. But even in like real world nature photography, there's aestheticization that is still like you still get the information and it still looks good, like a good photo, right? It's not one or the other.
Right. People, whether they agree on which photo is better, if you put two photos of a snake in front of people, and I say this because you have this great picture of an Arbok. If you put two of them in front of people, they would have a preference between them most of the time, right? Maybe not a snake. Snake is a bad example, but like whatever of an Arctic fox. If you have one and they, both of them contain the raw, like, hey, there's enough of a fox here for you to understand what you're looking at.
I have an example right here. Look,
sure. Is this the birds?
Wingulls.
Yeah.
Look at these Wingulls.
Yes.
One of these got a much better score than like almost double score than the other one.
And it's that very basic one where it's near the center,
which is not necessarily a bad photo. It's kind of but the real thing is that it's singular and bigger in the frame. It's just because it's a little more zoomed in. If I had gotten closer to
whereas
the one
this other photo that you've taken is like a pair of them flying through a perfect sky with just a touch of clouds and some canyon. Or not canyon,
I am shocked that Nintendo made a sequel to Pokemon Snap that was more or less the original game with some minor tweaks.
Yeah,
20 years though.
Definitely not a company.
A Nintendo-like solution.
20. You know what? They're just doing the process they did with Pokemon originally, which is, I'm sorry, it's going to take another 20 before they actually do anything interesting and different with it. You should just be happy they made another one, Cado.
Which a lot of people will be. And like, look, I'm also enjoying parts of this game. The Pokemon are still very cute. Technology has evolved since that first one. The fidelity is nice. The environments are good. Some of the environments are great and like feel like habitats, and then some of them feel like you're on an amusement park ride, and the Pokemon are popping up and being like, "Hi, I'm here," and now I'm gone. Like, it's
classic nature shit.
Yeah, right. It's wild how much it swings actually, because when the good ones are good, it's like, oh wow, I'm really in this fucking jungle. I'm having to like frame things through trees and branches, and like you're only getting glimpses of things, but when you get that shot, oh, it's really good.
Yeah,
like shit like that is possible in this game, and when it works, it fucking works. But then it swings the other way, and you're like, oh, time to go on the haunted house ride where things jump out at you, and take a photo as it jumps out. Okay, great.
Yeah, that's a bummer.
And it's just, I think it ultimately is just, it's exactly what the way that Nintendo iterates. It's so safe within its like big franchises that I don't know why.
No, it's not just the big franchises.
Well, yeah. Well,
I got a little add-on to this.
Yeah, good. Every once in a while they make a Splatoon, right? This is the thing.
Yeah, of
that's
course.
frustrating.
Right.
It's just like you can see.
This is intrinsic to being a fan of Nintendo. Is like this is what the company is.
Yeah.
Like they will put out a patch 2.5 years later for Super Mario Party and add online play.
Oh,
wow. Can I talk to you briefly about Famicom Detective Club? Unless you have any final thoughts on if you have any closing thoughts on new Pokemon Snap.
Mostly it's like, if you like that original, like the Pokemon are cute, like you'll find it'll be fun, but like it's kind of frustrating as a longtime fan, like we were saying. And like one tip to anyone playing: save every photo that you like. The way that the album and like the photo decks work are the kind of two separate things. And if you have like a 1-star photo that you really enjoy, but then later you take a 1-star photo that has a better score and you replace it, you're gonna lose that original unless you save it, because there's like after each track you can save photos to an album, which is just like a repository for all of like photos that you can like share and whatever. Like that's just like where you keep things that look good, even if they're not gonna have good scores or whatever. Also, it does allow you to re-snap things, which is nice. It's just like once you've gone through and done all your scored stuff and you're saving stuff to your album, you can zoom in and out, change the depth of field on things, but you can only do it then. After that, it's saved as like a flat image, and then the other editing you can do is mostly like stickers and frames and a little bit of like a weird filter stuff you can do. But like it'll allow you to this is the most fucked up part too, is like there's a large like editing process to photography in general, right? Like especially digital photography. You're taking a lot of shots, picking out one and possibly manipulating it a lot, like cropping, like the whole thing, and it like has those tools but only after the scoring part. And it's like, I wish that they allowed you to do it. Like this is part of the creative process of photography, is making those final edits to have your final thing that you're presenting be. So like it's like, oh, those tools are there, but you can't use them as part of the like
scoring mechanism. They're just a separate.
They've kind of separated this idea of photography as aesthetic.
So also, I worry if they had brought the edit into the scoring mechanism, you would be forced to edit these photos to be as lifeless and like rote composition. Sure, you know what I mean? Sure. As possible.
Yeah. But yeah.
So yeah, it sounds like I had a friend message me today or yesterday when the reviews dropped, and she was like, you know what? I'm like weirdly more excited about this Pokemon Snap game now that all the reviews are out, being like, it's just Pokemon Snap. Like, don't get your hopes up.
Yeah.
Because now my hopes aren't up. Right. And in that way, I'm kind of free to just be like, I'm going to play a Pokemon Snap game. Yeah. I'm going to enjoy it for a weekend, and I'm going to move on with my life. So that's fun.
It's just too bad, I think, like people, are going to, they're going to look at that new, what's the open, like proper open world one they're doing next year? What's that game called?
Legends.
You mentioned it earlier, Cado. Legends, is that what it is?
Acreus Legends, I think is the full subtitle. Yeah.
Like in an ideal world, which of course Nintendo will not do because it's just not how they operate, right? Like you get this version of the game, which is like
Arceus. We don't know if it's. I think we've been down this road before. We don't know if it's a hard.
They say
C or
Acreus. Acreus is a Destiny gun, not Acreus.
Okay. Arceus. Arceus or Arceus.
Pokemon Legends: Arceus. There we go.
Sure.
You know, like you get Pokemon Snap, like Redux, which is just kind of a colored up version of the old game, and then like you get this like a more bigger, ambitious game that like would have a photography. You know what I mean? Something like that that was like, hey, you're exploring in a big space. You know, maybe it couldn't have the same sort of like very detailed like setups and behaviors that, you know, are present in a Snap because it's like very curated and like concentrated environments. Right. But, you know, it would be interesting to have something like that where you could have interactions with the Pokemon that goes beyond just capturing them and turning them into your combat friend.
Yeah. It's doing Monster Hunter Rise has a photo option while you're out there in the field. And you can get some good photos of monsters. You want some monsters to take photos of? Let me talk about Monster Hunter Rise. They interact with each other. They fight.
I saw someone do a full collection of feet for all the
monster feet,
all the monsters. It was real a dedication to the cause.
Yeah. Okay. Sure.
What were you going to say?
Famicom Detective Club.
Okay.
Right.
I played the first one of those. I beat the first one of those. I played all that one all the way through. So, Famicom Detective Club, Famicom Tante Club originally is an adventure game series that came out on the Famicom on the
These are old
NES.
as hell. This is obscure.
This is 1988 and 1989.
Look, hey, this is the yin and yang of Nintendo.
No, it isn't. No, it isn't. They're both the same, and I'm going to get there.
No. Wait, okay.
Unfortunately. No. I know what you're trying to say, but you're wrong.
Okay. Or what
you want to say, what you're about to say is, wow, what a wild swing that Nintendo took. They went back and resurrected this old franchise. But that's the same thing they did with Pokemon Snap. We just know about it. You're right that it's a franchise that didn't cross over to the West.
Right.
Unfortunately, just like Pokemon Snap, this series is still an old design model that has all the frustrations it had at the time. And all they've done is really done a facelift on it. Right. I bet they've done less design-wise with this game.
Isn't this literally just like a remake of an old game?
It's just a localization.
Right. No, it's not. It's not a localization. It's a remake. It's a complete ground-up remake of those games.
Right.
Those games were out they're from 1988. They do not look as good as this looks.
Okay, but I mean, like mechanically,
same game, 100% same game.
Right.
Well, that's not true.
I guess that's what I meant.
100% the same game because like they did get rid of like a pixel hunt in the final act of. But mechanically, it's like a menu-driven pixel hunt, so it kind of doesn't matter. I enjoyed my time with. So let me just set this up. Famicom Detective Club is a series of adventure games in the vein of something like Phoenix Wright. You are a young detective. In this case, you have amnesia in the first one of these, which is the missing heir. You are brought in to work a case. A kind of local woman of great means who lives in a mansion died under mysterious causes the night after her will was read to her family. You know, classic, Agatha Christie type shit.
Yeah.
And you're brought in to try to figure out what's going on. Also, you're dealing with your amnesia. Everything in the game is presented in this really beautiful, like, drama anime style. Everyone has these very fun, accentuated features, but like still tied into like a basically realism. And your job is to talk to people, piece together what happened by asking them questions about facts and figures you already have. And with your mind and also just with the game, get to a conclusion as you work your way through 10 or 11 chapters of this game. Again, I compare it to Phoenix Wright because I suspect people have probably played that style of Japanese adventure game. I think you're going to hear a lot of people call this game a visual novel. This isn't what a visual novel is. Just to ride this hobby horse for a quick second. I think there's been a weird overreaction. I think 5 years ago, a lot of well-meaning people, including people like us, Patrick, were like, visual novels are fucking video games. They're real video games. Stop treating visual novels like they're not video games. And now we use the word visual novel to describe many things that are not what Japanese developers would call visual novels. So we end up saying that something like 13 Sentinels is a visual novel, whereas in Japan that would be called an adventure game because you're walking around, which is like a strange.
Yeah,
but
I mean, I think that's similar to the deconstruction of like a roguelike. Like it's just
totally
like, once it goes mainstream, it then comes to represent more things than its original.
But
genre.
this is what traditionally would be called an adventure game. You're going from place to place. You have a menu box that has things like that has options for you to choose from. Those options are, look around the environment, look at a person, ask the person about a major character, ask the person about a piece of evidence that you have. Now, you don't have like an evidence list. You just have this button. You just have a menu that's like, ask them about the cigarette box or whatever, right? Ask them about what happened, the autopsy. And you're going through this mystery case and there's twists and turns and additional deaths, and it's like a classic, crime story, right? And the story itself is really fun, and I think that the character art is exceptional. Like seeing the characters move. There's a lot of sequences where there's more animation than I thought there would be, where there's like cut-ins and not camera sweeps, but characters doing things that make them look good. All that stuff is fantastic. I think like the foundation of that stuff is really good. Where I have an issue is just it's a 30-year-old game design at this point.
Sure.
It's over 30 years old. So for instance, let's say you're talking to a doctor about a situation, right? And let's say you only even have a few things to talk to him about, right? Your options are on the screen. Talk to him about the family that had a death. Talk to him about the woman who died. Talk to him about the will. And then there's a generic thing you can always ask, which is like, what do you know? Tell me what you know. It puts some pressure on you. And even that's kind of read differently depending on the situation that you choose it in. And then on top of that, you can look around the room. You can try to call another character in. You can hit like call/engage. You can try to remember something by hitting the remember button. Etc. This is a game in which you will exhaust all of the options on your menus and like, okay, nothing's happening. What the fuck do I do to go to the next stage of this investigation? And the answer is almost always, even though it's not marked in any way, you have to re-ask him about the body. You have to re-ask him about the will. Maybe you have to do the look at him command. Why do you have to do the look at him command? Presumably because something's changed about his appearance in such a way that that's going to lead your character to advance to the next thing. There are moments in this game where I was like, and sometimes here's the other thing is like there are times in the middle of this game, especially where you have 3 locations to go to at once, and none of them will close off. Meaning it feels like there's something there for you. And sometimes there's not. Sometimes across all 3 of those, you're just looking for one menu interaction that will advance the plot one note, and then you'll move on to the next day of game and you'll have all new places to go to or whatever. And it's just a 30-year-old game design. It's just to the degree that by the end of this game, I was looking at a machine translated FAQ walkthrough for the original game in Japanese. And it was not exactly the same. There's differences. And I wasn't using it for everything, but I was like, what the fuck am I missing here? And there's literally a place towards the end of the game where you have to click on, you're looking for something in the ground and you have to look for it enough, like 6 or 7 times and get a negative result. Like 6 or 7 times before your character goes like, oh damn, I guess I can't find anything here. And like, why the fuck would I continue clicking on nothing, looking for something? You know what I mean? Like you're literally doing a fake pixel hunt. You're looking for something on the ground, clicking on various parts of the screen, hoping to find something. And so it's just an old design in a way that's like, doesn't do the core story and characters any service, which is a shame because I think it's like a fun, it's a boy detective story. It's like an Encyclopedia Brown or a Detective Conan. I mean, you're like a 17-year-old, but it's that style of like the hip young detective is showing everybody up because he's kind of a prodigy, detective genius and is helping to put things right. And that's really fun. It's just not, the design itself doesn't hold up. If you want to make your point at this point, Patrick, I'm sorry I stepped over it, but you see why I'm skeptical of giving this the good Nintendo that does weird things.
I don't think it's good Nintendo as much as I just think it's historically interesting.
It is historically interesting. It's wild.
Does it situate that at all? Like, let's say
no.
See, I think that's a problem, right?
That's not true. I guess at the very beginning of the first time you launch the game, it says 1988, 1999, or something like that, because there's I think there's an SNES remake of this stuff, and that is it. It does not say, hey, these games came out in a different context.
Right, because that's the part that Nintendo constantly like does not want to engage in. It was like, this could have been such an interesting, like, hey, we've chosen to go back into the past. We're dressing it up so that, you can, like, just better get into it in 2021 with sort of like modern sensibilities. But also, like, let's talk, like, how do we go from this game to Breath of the Wild? You know what I mean? There's just so much interesting about a company that used to make games like this and doesn't anymore. What it said about the company at the time, and just nothing. Like, not even like, I really wish Nintendo would start working with some of these external companies, like Digital Eclipse, and,
to do some of the archival and like to learn how to talk about their own history and frame their own work in that way. I should say, like, I have fondness for this game despite all of what I just said, and like if this sort of mystery thing, also there will be English walkthroughs available today by the time you're hearing this. So like if you get stuck at 3 a.m., you'll be able to be like, oh, let me just go on GameFAQs real quick, and watch, or, click through a thing and see what stupid, text option I need to choose to advance this thing. God, there's a conversation with a monk where you have to click on a gravestone like 4 times with a different thing. It's so frustrating. Because the core of it is good, and I wish that they had just done that. I wish they had taken the core, like, premise of this and the story and had built something a little more wiggly in terms of player agency. Like that's the actual core thing. Is this is a detective game where you're not really doing detective work. You're kind of doing detective work, but what you're mostly doing is trying to find the right word key to put in the mystery lock. And that is limiting. I wish that there was a degree to which if you play contemporary, like, mystery games like this, often there is something like the Frogware Sherlock Holmes game. Sometimes there's a situation where you have like a word bubble. What is a word cloud? There's a bunch of ideas. You can tie the ideas together. And those games also run into problems of like, you need to do A before B happens, even if you have the solution. But this was a game where I was like, I'm pretty sure this person is the villain. I'm actually, tied to this case in this way. Here is the true hero of this story. About like 4 hours before I got to the end of the game, and there's like no way to work to play on that knowledge. And you run into that with something like Phoenix Wright too, but it's just worse here because it feels like you can't progress until you find the right option, and there's so many options so often. Again, Phoenix Wright does also have that problem sometimes. I'm not saying it doesn't stumble into that, but most of the time it's clear enough, or the processes of like presenting all of your evidence to a witness and being like, is it this? Is it this? Is it this? Is it this? Is not as like time consuming and frustrating as it is in Famicom Detective Club. Or at least, again, I only played Famicom Detective Club, The Missing Heir. I did not play the follow-up one, which is actually a prequel called The Girl Who Stands Behind. Which is set up like it's like a horror thing. It's like listen, Patch, don't make that face. It's like hey, kids in this school see a girl appear in the mirror, and then
I saw the that's the one that, like, if I was going to play one of them,
yes,
that was the one.
That's the one that you should play. I think
up my alley.
Except that I think that the design, again, I haven't put enough time into it to know if they fix any of this design stuff. My guess is they would. Also, from just looking around, that's the one that has like let's plays of it with fan patches and stuff. That makes me think maybe there's like something there. If I had done that first, I would have played that game first, that's how it goes. Anyway, that is Famicom Detective Club. I'm still fundamentally excited that they did this. In that way, it is that other type of Nintendo that does weird shit sometimes. Mm-hmm. Like, it's cool. It's wild they did it. It's wild it came out. It doesn't
make any
English.
sense. It's not tied to like a a celebration or
it's not an anniversary. It's not a.
This one's not being removed from the eShop arbitrarily in a couple months.
I'm so curious why this got remade. I'm so curious is there another Famicom Detective Club? Also, it's called Famicom Detective Club. They could have renamed it Nintendo Detective Club, and they didn't. They kept Famicom, and you can find a Famicom. There's a if you're in a there's a storage closet that you go into at one point, and there's a little Famicom like box, and your character goes like, like that seems like it's weird that that's here, but that seems like a cool device you could spend a responsible amount of time with, or something like that, where it's like. Yeah, okay, Nintendo, great.
A responsible amount of time.
It's very like, again, a very Nintendo-like thing.
Yeah.
Anyway, shout outs to people who, I'm sure there is a fandom out there who's been like, this is the event of the year for them. And I hope that they like it because if you know what you're getting into and this is your type of game, it seems like a very good one of these. I also, to all of my friends out there who are mad at me for playing all of this, instead of finally getting into Umineko or any of the other When They Cry series of actual doujin visual novels. Sorry, but this was a new release and I'm cursed to be on a podcast about video games. What else? Is anything else we got going on today? Any other?
I should look back around.
I guess. Yeah. Yo, you go ahead. I was gonna throw to you to Returnal, which is out today. I'm downloading it currently.
I will be very curious to see what you think of it. I have significantly cooled on it. From I caveated some of my like thoughts on it when I first discussed it, and I thought the shooting is really good. It looks gorgeous. It's exceptionally fun to play. I don't know that the roguelike stuff really. I don't know that it can't not work, but this really, having watched Hades go through a public cycle in which they release a chunk of it into the world and then said, hey, like, let us know what you think. We haven't done one of these before. Like, let's build the rest together. I think there is an argument for, you look at Dead Cells, like, there's a reason Rogue Legacy 2, there's a reason a lot of roguelikes end up engaging in an early access sort of program, because figuring out where to turn the dials on how to make a run continually interesting in a game in which repetition and runs are fundamental to the experience, because you are dialing down things like story and other sort of like a more natural like designer-led progression arc. Those things are removed or are played down. What I found playing Returnal is that I just found often subsequent runs got really boring and really long really fast, and that this game does not have a lot of chance or randomness to its runs. It is really interested in the skill arc. It is really interested in tying you to understanding fundamentally how the combat works, how the enemy design works, really internalizing that, and then giving you new things to do as you progress through that arc, both in terms of like the broader arc of you understanding all the systems and interactions of this game, and then in like the run specific arc of like filling a meter so that increases the pool of the level of guns that will come out. There will never be a scenario playing Returnal, and I miss this. It's something I like in roguelikes. I think this game could use more things in this direction of like, you've entered in, you go to the first room, and it's just like, boom. Like, you have like a really weird overpowered weapon, and you're just going to start playing the game, like just like demolishing the first area, or even a scenario where you encounter something that fundamentally changes how you're going to play because it's unexpected and strange and is not how you typically play, but now you're going to roll with it. Neither of those things seem to exist in Returnal, and what you end up with is a pretty flat, fairly streamlined experience on a run-to-run basis that, unless you are making meaningful progress forward, where you are like getting to a next area, a next boss, a next environment, when you're going through that older stuff, there's just not a lot that's changing. There's not a lot that's different, and it thus makes those runs just like not particularly engaging to mess around with. And so that's where I've kind of ended up with the games. Like, I'm super curious to see how they respond to like a mass influx of thousands of players that suddenly start banging their head against the game. Does that mean that there'll be I don't think they would have to change too much of this game to really entice me to keep going with it. And I still might keep going with it regardless, but it is just really hard. Like last night, I gave it like another, hour and a half. and had a really good run. Didn't make it that much further than I made it before. That was 90 minutes of my time. It was like whoop, back to the front. And I just didn't. It was really hard to get the energy to want to do that sprint again. And part of what gets you the energy to do that sprint again in different roguelikes have different motivations, right? In Hades, you know, there's the story stuff. They use that as a significant hook to, even for a failed run or a run that is just, hey, I'm going to go get some collectibles because that's informing like the meta that I'm feeding into for my character. Those things just don't exist at all in Returnal. You have things that progress across runs. You know, you have this ether, a rare item that can uncurse certain chests. But you know what I found? You don't really need to mess with that shit. Like, you will find decent enough stuff on a run that you don't need to worry that much about these like using like this random chest and this rare item. And so I don't know. I guess like my meta critique of the game is that it doesn't justify the loop. And it really feels like it's a game that wants you to progress, but it's gating that behind like the loop. And I just am not finding the loop. In the loop, I'm enjoying myself. The shooting is fun. The moving is fun. But it is the actual construction of the loop. Things just don't change enough. Like these like parasites that are like risk rewards of, you know, like your health items do better, but you know, you're going to get hurt every time you use a special key. They're just not interesting enough. Like the risk is not funny or interesting or dynamic enough. The rewards are not funny, interesting, or dynamic enough. And I need more of that. I need it to like stretch in different directions to make the individual runs seem like, well, shit, I guess this is what this run has turned into. And that just never exists. Like every single run I'm having in Returnal is more or less the same as the last one. I was hoping that as I played longer, I would get access to more weapons. And there are. I see the slots. I see like 7 other weapons I can get. I can't get those till I make it to the end of the second or get to the third area. Those just are not going to show up randomly in this run where the game's like, all right, like, you know what? Psh, here's like a weird other weapon. Like, this will at least make this a little bit different. That just doesn't happen. And so that's kind of where I sit at with the game. On a like broader level, what also makes it frustrating to interact with is that there's no way to pause a run without going into rest mode. Now that is not unique to Returnal. Like it is often the case that roguelikes want you to engage in the run, and like there's not a save, you can't save. Like you just gotta end the run or go back. The problem is Returnal runs can frequently go for 2 hours plus. That is a really long amount of time to invest where you may want to like go away, do something else. I cannot, for example, get halfway through a run in Returnal and then realize my kids are asleep. I've got like half an hour. I'm just going to go do a side quest in NieR. Like, no, I need to go abandon that run in Returnal or finish it out because I can't. There is no quick access menu in PlayStation the way there is in Xbox. It cannot sustain multiple games in a save state. You load a game, that is the game. When you go to the next game, it loads the next game. And Returnal does not account for this. Like in its you know on a game level to try and account for this to give you like, hey, we'll just, you know, pause this run you've got going. You can come back later if you want to go play something else. And you compound that with, I don't know that it's an epidemic, but I know enough people, and those people know enough people. I know people that just don't use the rest mode in their PS5 because it causes crashes, it causes issues. You know, and so if you've introduced a scenario where the game is saying the only way that you can pause this run is to go into a rest mode. And I know people that are like, well, I just always power down the PS5 because it causes crashes and other issues with their machine.
Or even just like, I don't want to leave a thing using as little low power electricity when we're all stuck at home using more electricity than normal anywas. Right?
Sure. Right. Yeah. It's like, I'm not using it, so I'm going to turn it off is like a pretty normal thing to do. So all that leads me to feeling a little more mixed on it and really like more disappointed than anything else because the core of it is tremendous. Right. And I really like it. I just want more motivation to keep playing on an individual run.
I'm like so curious how they adjust. Yeah,
because this again like gets to kind of the core argument of just like I'm at like 10 hours in, I have the feeling of like, you know what I would like? I would just like checkpoint. I would just like to keep playing. Like I would just like the game to like kick me back and like I would like to just keep going forward. And that stinks because I think there is that shouldn't. I think once I start feeling that response, and someone that plays roguelikes, likes roguelikes, has beaten Spelunky, I feel like I have like the cred to be like I'm just not bouncing off the design, as it stands. I just feel like when I'm reaching that point in a game like this, I think that's saying something about its fundamental design, and where it's lackluster in regards to its roguelike structure. But totally. I think it's not surprising that you are running into those with a studio for the first time building that. It is not like it is very hard to nail that on the first go. So I do actually hope, even if this game didn't have because I think big companies like Sony have a problem. They don't like. I've been hoping they'll start taking the Band-Aid off and just do an early access game. Like there's nothing wrong with that. Like they're doing it with Grounded. Yeah. There are instances of these big publishers doing it. And so maybe Returnal will kind of have that, right? Like it will essentially like get proper support from Sony for them to invest in this game.
We'll get a No Man's Sky arc.
It doesn't need that much. I actually don't think this game needs
less than that. Yeah.
Yes. I don't think it needs fundamental rethinking. I think it needs like important tweaks. Like even if it's as simple as it is such a blessing to start a run where the warp zone to get to the next area is like the room over, and occasionally that happens where like you get in and then literally the next room is like, hey, you just want to leave, go to the next area. It's like, yes, I do, because there are drops over there that will level me up immediately. And then allow me to just like start engaging with that second area immediately. Like at the point that I'm doing that, just like let me just warp to the second area
at that point. Yeah.
Or just guarantee that every time you start a run, it will just be there. Like it should just be there. Like you go into another area and it's like 3 doors. Just always guarantee that like once you've been to that second area, you'll give me the option to scour the whole first world, but let me just go to the second area immediately if I want to. And like related to that is, I have an issue where when I jump to the second area, yes, you do get an item that increases your like weapon proficiency, which influences the drops you get to like, let's say level 5. That appears to be usually what it ends up at. Well, the problem is I'm in there with a level 0 weapon, which makes the first encounter really fucking hard. And I need to survive that first encounter to get to a chest. There's always a chest in that first area. I've always found one. But I've frequently like made it to the second area, get in there, lose at that first fight because like my pea shooter, like the DPS is very low. And that's frustrating, that's easily solvable is if just when I get to that second area, the weapon upgrade is there and there's a chest to guarantee that I have a weapon that is level appropriate immediately so that I can continue forward. And that just seems like the kind of thing that there will be a patch in 2 weeks. It's like, hey, weapon chest always spawns in World 2 to give you a level 5 weapon for the first encounter so that you are, appropriately spec'd. And so that stuff is what comes out of like mass testing. And I just hope this game gets a chance to do that, because even for myself who enjoys these games, I've found myself like deeply frustrated. It's like I want to give more to it, and I'm coming up short. So
yeah,
but I think people are gonna. I think it's still gonna like really vibe for a lot of people, and they'll get over that hump. I think the game like is excellent in a lot of ways, and so I just hope it gets that quality of life stuff.
I'm very curious the ways in which we've talked about how needing to play something for coverage or review changes your relationship with it a lot. But we haven't talked about this lately, but like, I'm curious to see how this vibes with streaming culture, right? Like, is the repetitive nature of it going to open up or going to find a huge audience the same way that a lot of other roguelikes do?
No. You don't think so? You don't think there's not a chance. As it is currently constructed, they're like part of what makes games like Binding of Isaac or Spelunky succeed as streaming games is because you will load up a run and you know what's going to happen, but you don't actually know what's going to happen. Yeah. And Returnal has none of that. And I think that's why when you say that, like, that's what makes me feel like it needs more than a few little tweaks. That like figuring out that balance on like new shit happening is hard. But I think even if they don't want to be that game in which they are adopting, what I'm saying is I think they can adopt the structure of a roguelike, put in quality of life improvements that just make the progression arc like more
shorter
interesting
and better, right?
Or shorter and better
and
better
and more
paced,
consistent,
better pace, easier
right.
to engage with. Like things like dropping a weapon chest in the second area, guaranteeing the warp is like those are things that just allow me to get to the stuff I want to get to, which is like the midway section of the second world that I am just currently stuck at. It gets me there faster. Yes, like to actually really do the structural changes that like are like really stretching out the randomness, if that's the direction they want it to go into with that game. Yeah, that requires a lot of design work, big expansions, like doesn't fundamentally rethink the game, but is not something that is going to be rolled out, in a couple of weeks, unless they've just been sitting on things. So,
which would be
I'd
a
be
weird
surprised
thing
if they
to
went
sit
in that
on.
direction.
I guess there's a world in which they have some questions about their own difficulty curve or progression curve, and like have solutions planned or whatever, and like are ready to execute on developing those or whatever. But yeah, I'm curious. It's such a weird thing that so much is resting. So much feels like it rests on the shoulders of this game for Sony, because it's such a big early PS5 game that like, in some ways, this could never have been the game they experiment with early access on, because it has to serve this bigger role as being an early PS5
it has to be a tentpole
exclusive.
release. It can't just be like a very pretty like.
In that way, again, it does remind me of No Man's Sky in terms of like, hey, we've pushed this. If they pushed No Man's Sky, I feel like the hype around No Man's Sky was much higher.
Oh yeah,
and the disappointment was much higher as well. So obviously, based on just what reviews look like, I will say that
No Man's Sky felt like a betrayal, in some ways, like you were misguided. Returnal doesn't feel that way. I just feel like it is what it is. Like the trailers, sell the game that it is. I just feel like it falls short on, or could be doing better than like what it currently has. And I just don't know. Those aren't the games that Sony makes. Like Sony releases a game. Yes, there are some patches or updates, but they move on to the next thing. Mm-hmm. And Returnal could go from being like a game with a really interesting foundation into something special, but it needs work to get there. Yeah. And it's unclear to me whether it will have like the path to do that, right? Like I don't know that there's nothing that indicates to me right now that like I'm gonna look over on Twitter and Housemarque's gonna like tweet out like, and here's our plan for the next year. Like this is how we plan to like talk, and maybe that happens after the game's out. They have a better sense of what players bounce. I don't know, but my inclination is to think, it gets an expansion at some point and some patches, but that otherwise it is what it is. And I think that would be unfortunate, because I think it could be a lot better. So I'm probably going to put a pause on it, because I do want to see what like the first round of balance changes are, because I think it really would, they don't have to do big stuff to make me enjoy the game a lot more really quickly. And like, especially given I'm trying to finish NieR, in the middle of playing another game.
What was that? How was the woo?
Yeah, no, it's I don't what.
Weird.
My kids are home. I get a lot of stuff's coming out, and so
is it chilly there? Is it chilly there in Chicago? Still snowing a little bit.
Yeah, yesterday it was a little chilly. It got down to like 52. It was a little cloudy. I had to put on It was not sandal season yesterday.
Oh fuck! Damn.
But so I'll be curious. Yeah, I'm so curious to think what you think. We'll have to revisit it on Monday.
I'll think of it. Yeah, totally. I'm excited again. So I'll play a bunch this weekend probably.
And I have two things I want to shout out very quickly. I don't have a lot to say about either of them, which is not a commentary on them. But Rain on Your Parade, which is a game that's on a bunch of platforms, but I had seen folks like Gary Whitta on Twitter saying that it was a game their kid really responded to. Gary's kid is much older than mine, but I've been trying to find, I don't care that much if my kid does or doesn't play video games, but at times I tire with the games she does want to play with me, like Princess Castle or whatever. And it's like, whoa, I'm now at the stage like, just we can play a fucking video game together. It'd be like way more interesting than like the thing we want to do that we do every single day. But it's just, I haven't found many entries into that unless it's just like her watching me like jump around for a little bit. And so, Rain on Your Parade is a very basic game. It's on Game Pass as well, but I got it on Switch because that's the machine that's hooked up to the TV that she uses. You're a little cloud, and you ruin people's day by raining on them. It's a very basic looking game. You're
not the first person who's told that to me, Patrick.
What?
That I'm a little cloud who rains on people's days.
out here just making MCU fans mad left and right.
God, I wasn't even thinking about that, but yes.
And it has like a very, and I definitely do not mean this as a pejorative, but like very like student game kind of quality. Like it feels a little rickety in the aesthetic in a way that's very endearing. Like you just have kind of like these basic political figures. It's it almost feels like an amateur hour Yoshi's. What was the cardboard one that they put out?
Woolly World? No, that's Woolly.
That's the
World?
Woolly one.
Yeah,
Yoshi's
but whatever that one was, you can look it up.
Crafted
World.
That's
It feels like it has like an amateur hour like Yoshi's Crafted World vibe in a way that I really enjoy. And it's like basic objectives. Like the first level is it's a wedding, like rain on these motherfuckers, and the sub objectives are like rain on all of the chairs. And so I played with my daughters the first time, not first time, but she like was sitting and playing and like manipulating the analog stick and pressing a button on her own. And some of the levels got a little too hard, or it was like the sun was chasing her around and stealing her water, and she's like, basically in 4-year-old speak was like, this sucks and is too hard. And like I looked in the options to see if there's a way to just like let her play the level, and you couldn't. And so I was like, occasionally I would take the controller, get to a level where it was like more playful. Like there was one at a school where it's just a bunch of systemic interactions, like just rain on different things happen. So anyway, it's very cute. I enjoyed our time with it. She expressed an interest in going back to it to play it again, but that's just a cute little game that I enjoyed, and especially if you have Game Pass, it's cool that you can just jump on there and check it out. And then the other game is Turnip Boy Commits Tax Evasion, a game I got a lot of emails about. And by emails, I don't mean like readers writing in. I just mean like getting a lot of PR emails. Yeah. And there is a certain kind of look, PR people got to do their job, but sometimes a game reaches a certain email threshold that can feel a little desperate, and it's like then I just start auto archiving, like just disengage. I got a few too many on that one, and so I just didn't take a look at it. And I saw Jason Schreier tweeting that he was really enjoying his time with it, and I was like, all right, okay, I'm gonna go back in, find one of these 14 emails, and ask for a code. And this game is really cute and funny. It has incredible writing. It has a distinct Game Boy Advance like 2D look. Like I feel like I'm just playing like a big ass Game Boy Advance game. Game Boy Advance games had like a very kind of like I don't know how to describe the pixel art of the Game Boy Advance. But if you played a GBA game, like it definitely like evokes that vibe, and it's kind of like an adventure puzzle game. You are a turnip that like didn't pay your taxes, and like the quote unquote IRS is coming after you. You live in like a plant village. It's like a whole goofy sort of a setup, but like what you're ultimately doing is like talking to a bunch of different people, finding objects for them and solving puzzles. And it's just, the writing is really funny and weird. The art is gorgeous, and it's just a fun world to run around in. So I've only played like an hour or so, but I've enjoyed my time with it so far, avoiding the IRS and this Turnip world. So fantastic. Turnip Boy Commits Tax Evasion. Great title, too. That's a good title. Returnal, bad title. Turnip Boy Commits Tax Evasion, good title.
Returnal Boy commits
tax evasion while it rains on your parade.
All right. Well, I think that's
a light novel.
Yeah, that is a light novel. Yes. We'll take a quick dip in the question bucket if that works for you.
Is this a question bucket? Do we even have a question bucket anymore? I just feel we have like food commentary.
You know what? Point. None of the ones I marked are food ones today.
Huh.
All right.
Believe it or not. I have one marked. I actually have one marked for when Rob is back, because it feels like I need Rob's food expertise on it, because it includes an assignment from a food studies program.
Okay.
So I feel like that's a Rob Zachney joint for sure. But this you can send your questions in gaming@vice.com. Also, someone wrote in to be like, why is it gaming@vice.com but vice.com/games? And there's an answer to that. History. You got to pay attention to history.
I don't even
we
know
used to
the
be
answer
Vice
to that
Gaming,
one.
and then we at one point became Vice Games.
Right.
And that's why those URLs, that's why there's not a match. But when the podcast started, Waypoint didn't exist yet. The name Waypoint was not public.
Correct.
And so we were Vice Gaming, and we used to be Vice.com/gaming. Vice Gaming's new podcast, exactly. Then, when they buried Waypoint, we did not want to go back to being Vice Gaming. Also, gaming in like, you end up getting business emails if you're gaming about gambling, because gaming is an industry term that means gambling. And so you'll end up on a bunch of weird things, which still did happen to me when I first got my Vice account. I had to tell a bunch of people that's not what I do. But yeah, it was like, let's just be games now. That way it's a third thing instead of just going back to the first thing. Anyway, we're Waypoint again, so don't even worry about it. Love to be big business. We're part of a big business, I guess. This one comes in to from Kevin in ATX. The recent discussion about gaming in strange places reminds me of my sophomore year in high school, where Pokemon Heart Gold / Soul Silver came out. These games had little Pokeball step trackers that you could put one Pokemon in and walk around with them to level up. Cado, was that like I've done this?
Yeah, I've lost that many times.
Okay. Kevin continues, I was on our school cross-country team, and half the team had this game and these things. Often, half of practice was spent discussing, training, or battling Pokemon, and the other half running with our Pokemon. We always brought our best Pokemon to meets, even though our coaches hated it. I did this until a very sad and unfortunate event in a porta potty at an away meet. That's a shame. That's a rough way to lose a Pokemon. But that's I love that. I love that, like, this whole cross-country team was, like, running with their Pokemon. Yeah. That's very fun. I'm a fan of that.
I lost many of those things when that game was new. Just, I don't know how they made the, like, slipperiest thing. Like, I would put it in my pocket to try to not lose it, and that shit would somehow fall out while I was running around or whatever.
God, yeah. Thank you as always for sending in your playing games in weird places. This one comes in from someone that's unsigned. With the recent release of Ball and Wonder World, and to a lesser extent Yooka-Laylee before it, I feel very dissonant from the general consensus of the gaming community. I don't think I've seen a single person other than myself enjoying the game, and most seem to think it's awful for reasons I honestly can't fathom. I'm just shy of halfway through, and I'm having a complete blast with it. While I can understand it might not be everyone's cup of tea, I can't for the life of me figure out what people find so offensive about it. My question, have you ever had a similar situation where you felt like they released a game that's only for you? What's a game that you think is fantastic despite critical reception being extremely negative?
I will say, it's sidebars. I do think there was like a bullying aspect to Balan Wonderworld at a certain point in which it became...
It's video game's main character of the day. In the same way that Twitter gets a main character.
Yeah, and it became a meme. It became like, oh, this game is bad. Let's make fun of it that it's bad. And it's cool and trendy to make fun of it that it's bad. Now, I should say, I think it's bad. Like, I'm not arguing that it's
played it, and you're
I played the demo,
played it, and
it was like felt like legitimately gross to hit the jump button. It didn't do anything for me. And look, I'm out here.
Hit the button, not just the jump button. The button.
And like, I'm out here advocating, that you introduce your family to the glory of the Christmas night soundtrack on a holiday near you. So like, I'm out here. I love
Yuji
Naka. But, he hasn't had it in a while, and I think Balan Wonderworld, is underscores that. But I do think it became. It became a punching bag. So it doesn't shock me that I don't know that there'll be like a full-on critical like reassessment of
There already is. It's happening. I've seen it. Yeah. I have friends who are Wonderworld aficionados who are out here waving the Yuji Naka flag as loud and proud as they can.
What's the egg game that he made for the GameCube? Do you remember that one?
No, I don't.
Oh, come on. You rolled a big egg.
Yuji Naka. Egg game.
Billy Hatcher
and the giant egg. Yeah, sure.
What?
Yeah, I'd always thought that was I'd always, as a kid, thought that was a adaptation from some like a cartoon that I didn't know, and I just don't think it is. I think it's just a game about a kid with an egg. Billy Hatcher, It
is. Yep.
Dressed up like a chicken. It's weird. Anyway, I think this is I also think part of it is there aren't a lot of people who like this is already a subgenre of character platformer that was
the costume-based
despised.
character platformer is
well, and the Sonic Adventure style, you know what I mean? Like the non-Mario character the non-Mario or non-Jack and Daxter, Sly Cooper, what's the third one? Ratchet and Clank, like Crash Bandicoot, the non-Sony and non-Mario 3D character action platformer, the Sega style 3D character action platformer.
Well, that's Sonic,
I feel like it's Sonic.
Well, yeah, I mean, Yuji Naka's been
always
chasing that ever since. Like, I mean, like the Giant Egg game is also like chasing after that to a certain degree. Like, that's just the game he's tried to remake.
And there are people for whom it really clicks, really clicks. And I think a lot of people just don't like that type of game, and especially now it's on such a downturn that like you're not going to find the loud advocates for it because there just aren't that many people who play the genre writ large at this point, let alone this particular instance that has some design decisions that can feel inscrutable and strange. the fact that jump is not a thing that any character can do, but you have to put on the right costume. But then also there's like costumes that all they do is jump, and then there's costumes that like do jump plus a bunch of. I've now watched a bunch of gameplay footage out of morbid curiosity, and that game is not for me. I don't like good platformers. This is the thing. Imagine me looking onto this and being like, yeah, Mario who? I don't give a fuck about that dude either. What was that survey that was going around this week? I do not care for Mario. That's me. So in some ways, I'm rooting for Balan Wonderworld. I want those games to succeed. My answer for this is also No Man's Sky at launch. I'm the person who like really enjoyed No Man's Sky at launch, and mostly, I'm really happy they built a game for the audience that stuck with that game,
right,
and built features that audience wants. That stopped being the game that I fell in love with about 3 big updates in or something, where it's become about crafting a base and communities. And for me, it was a game about like flying around beautiful planets and listening to Frank Ocean and being sad. And like it's gotten further away from that and closer to Minecraft in the preceding years, and that's fine. And like I shout outs to that thing, but go back and read how I was writing about that game when that game launched.
Yeah,
I was a convert. That game did it for me in a way that it couldn't possibly do it for a wide audience, because it's just like not. I was like coming at it being like, yeah, this reminds me of the walking simulators of Connor Sherlock. Like, that's not what a marquee Sony exclusive needs to do to succeed at the level in the way that they want. But I think it was a far more me game. And you just, I don't know. I think taste is so hard and weird. I talked about this a lot this week. That like, it's something that's shaped over decades of time, especially if you're as old as you know we are on the podcast, where I'm not past the point at which it's changing. My taste will continue to change and develop as I grow older, but I'm past the point at which I can flip a switch and suddenly start to like a new thing. I have to put in lots of work to learn the contours of a new genre space, or to come to understand how to adjust my palette to appreciate something that I haven't liked before. And often that time feels better spent looking at the things I do like and being like, why does this scratch an itch for me? Why is it that I like this more than this? Why is it that I like the absolute shitheads of NieR Automata more than the absolute sweethearts of NieR Replicant? What's happening there in my mind? Why do certain type of fiction speak to me? Why does certain sort of gameplay speak to me? And that ends up being more productive for me. So like I say this as a fan of things, and frankly a creator of things that often do not get mainstream support and success. Make the thing that you want to make, play the thing you want to play, and engage with people and work that like scratches that itch, and try not to get too heated or too frustrated with yours being a marginal position in terms of taste. That often echoes other types of marginalism that you're part of, or comes from a place of not having the same kind of mass appeal, mainstream access to that work to begin with, to build that certain sort of taste. And yeah, I'm at the point now where it's like I don't tweet about the MCU mostly because I'm not going to convince anybody about my feelings about the MCU. What I'm going to do with my time is read about films that seem interesting to me, watch those movies, think about that stuff, instead of getting heated when people share a line that I think is poorly written. And like it's difficult, but I think it's done me well over the last few years to just kind of do me, if that makes sense. Do either of you have like a game that's like classically lambasted, but you like it a lot?
I've been looking. I was trying to find something. I feel like that's way more common when I was younger, and there's the games in front of you.
I 100% fall in line with the I played the most No Man's Sky at launch. I easily put 60 hours into that game at launch and really enjoyed it. But yeah, I don't know. I think mostly the other things are just like, it's not like lambasted, but just ignored, small things that like no one talked about. Yeah. Like one of the first reviews I wrote for the for Waypoint was for Nowhere Prophet, a game that I really enjoyed, the deck like rogue builder. You should go try Nowhere Prophet if you haven't yet, and it's like deck building roguelikes. It's a good one of those. But nobody knows this game exists, basically. Like,
yeah. There's a lot of that for sure. The other thing is, we're in lucky positions. Patrick, here's a game that you like that no one liked at the time: Dragon's Dogma.
Oh, yeah, that's true. But Final Fantasy VIII was going to be my answer.
Sure, but that game reviewed well. It's just that it had. Final Fantasy games are weird.
Yeah.
But Final Fantasy IX, like, being like a direct response to like, like Final Fantasy VIII did not go well. No, we need to do is remake a SNES game. I ended up like disliking Final Fantasy IX because it felt like a rejection of the fact that I liked 8. And was like, actually we kind of fucked that one up, guys. We better do one of those old nostalgia games so we could just make you forget 8 existed. When actually I know people really like 9, and it taken 9 on its own merits. 9's just fine. But I took that as like there was something wrong with me because I liked 8 so much. But Dragon's Dogma was definitely like when at the point that I was in my arc of time at Giant Bomb, where I was specifically carving out my direction of like, I'm going to play the games the audience is asking for that I don't think anyone else at the site is going to play, and like that'll be kind of like the thing I do. And like Dragon's Dogma ended up being that, like where like it started as just no one else wanted to play it. Other than to come over to my desk and hear the menu music, like blasting out of my my TV. And then it was a game that like I went on to like really like and champion and push. And I think you have mentioned was like one of the reasons that you like were first paying attention to that game.
Totally.
And that's like that, one of those that game has come around where now people.
Well, we and a few other really loud defenders of that game, including Dia, who's doing a great LP of it on her YouTube channel right now. There is we've pushed we've pushed people to try it is the thing that's happened, right? We've said, please try this game, and people have tried it, and an audience, and this is the thing with Balan Wonderworld, is I think there probably is an audience for that game out there who just like has only heard it been shit talked or not heard of it at all, and if they get to it, they'll be like, this actually speaks to me. It's out there. Yuji Naka's Chosen are gonna find that game one day and yell at all of us for shit talking it for so long. So
I feel like I played 10 before I was aware of Critical Response. How did 10 do when it first came out?
10 was huge.
Okay.
Like that was a moment.
That
was the first PS2 one. So
it was weird because I felt like amongst like the people that like I knew personally, nobody talked about 10 at all for some reason. And then I like really enjoyed it, but I was like not aware of like the critical sphere outside of just my group of friends.
I think it's more like the like more interesting with 10 is actually 10-2.
Right.
Which is that is a case of like popular fan rejection, and then actually like fairly quickly like that game had its champions, and I think the tune on it turned pretty fast, but that was like a bunch of dudes who loved their JRPGs rejecting a trio of women and it was also like a sequel. Like it picked up the story.
Right.
Yep.
I played a couple hours of that game, left my memory card at home. I was in college at the time, and I asked my mom to mail it to me because I was not going to be home for like a month or something. And when she only put it in like a regular like letter holder, and when it showed up, there was a hole in it, and the memory card was gone. And so I never played past like the first 4 hours. But like that's a game that like every year that goes by, I've thought like it'd be cool to go back and play that because like the dress system in the game seemed like you could be a fucking pop idol, and like, it was just
that was
cool.
what that game was.
It was very experimental. But that's a game that I've kind of hoped they would go back and like do something.
Do a 10 and 10-2.
Well, because they've re-released 10, but I don't think they've re-released 10-2. I think they have.
I think that's true. I think that's true.
Cado,
Cado, for your specific answer, Square expected the game, per Wikipedia, to sell at least 2 million copies worldwide, owing to the reduced PlayStation 2 fan base, making it smaller than the last 3 released titles. However, within 4 days of its release in Japan, the game had sold over 1.4 million copies in pre-orders, which set a record for fastest selling console RPG. These figures exceeded the performance of Final Fantasy 7 and 9 in a comparable period, and 10 became the first.
Hear that? Can you repeat that again?
The figures exceeded the performances of Final Fantasy 7 and 9.
Oh, interesting.
Oh.
It's left out 8 because or are you saying that 8 did better?
I really doubt that's true.
Yeah, you think that the 8 just gets left out here because it didn't compete. It wasn't at the race. Final Fantasy 10 became the first PS2 game to reach 2 million and 4 million copies sold. So, as of October 2007, the game was listed as the 8th best-selling game for the PS2.
That was also the time where like I didn't have a PS2, so like I did not play that game when it came out. Yeah. I caught it like at the tail end of PS2 time, and it's just like my friend lent it to me. Just like this one's all right. So like that's how I came into.
I love the combat in that game was so fun at the time. Being able to switch between all the characters in real time was not just novel. It felt like revelatory for like the glacial pace at which like a lot of JRPG combat worked up until playing that one. Plus, there's like I think that is like probably amongst like a lot of the ending of that game is where like a lot of people felt emotions playing a video game for the first time. It didn't hit me that hard because I was just like a young dumb kid, but I like have since heard it's like one of the first games that made me cry was Final Fantasy X. Like the end of that, the ending of that, I bet I would cry now. Now I've like my heart has opened in a way that like it could probably hit me harder because the ending of that game is really sad and powerful.
Yeah. The actual answer for me would probably the thing that I realize now is like we'd have to go before the polygonal era. We have to go back before the 32-bit era to find the real shit because
which random JRPG did you pull off the Blockbuster shelf?
Exactly.
Like, this is the shit
for
me. Like this is Tales of the Nine Stars or whatever
exactly. Or like even the weirder shit for me is like, you know what? True Lies on the Super Nintendo is a pretty good video game. And like, is it? I don't know, but I really like
for the Sega Genesis.
Comic Zone.
Last Action Hero. I love Schwarzenegger.
Exactly. The Genesis game Cyborg Justice.
VECTORMAN.
No one knows what that game is. See, this is what I'm saying.
VECTORMAN was good.
VECTORMAN was good. Look, I'm a VECTORMAN apologist over here.
I thought you were gonna say main, like you main VECTORMAN. Put VECTORMAN in Smash.
Oh my god! Put VECTORMAN in Smash. Shit,
that's a fit.
Yeah, absolutely.
VECTORMAN must be in Smash. In like a hacked in thing, right? There has to be some sort of
somebody hacked in some. I want this to be real.
Please, if it's not. I mean, Nintendo.
VECTORMAN,
make it happen.
I never owned VECTORMAN, but I played the first 2 levels of VECTORMAN a lot because my dentist had a Sega Genesis in his waiting room.
Damn.
And VECTORMAN was one of those games. Yeah. What?
Weird. That's strange to me.
I don't know why, but it was there and
there was a kiosk and you could switch the games, right? Like you pressed a button, like it was a proper.
Yeah.
Or was it just a Genesis?
No, it was a Genesis. It was a real Genesis, just like It was in a kiosk, but
okay.
it only had VECTORMAN.
Oh, so yeah, ours was like the dentist my parents took us to. Not the first one when I went to when I was really a kid, but like when I was in like the braces era. That had like an actual kiosk that like you pressed a button and it changed like.
My orthodontist, when I was in braces era, which is actually much later in life, I didn't get braces until I was like 18, which was because of a accident. They had a fucking Star Wars arcade cabinet.
Wow.
The like, I think you were in an X-wing, like one of the fighters. I think it was X-wing. Which one of those?
That's just a rich orthodontist living there. Like, it's like
it really was.
My wife won't let me put this in the garage, so I'm just gonna put it in the place that I own, my business.
Yeah. That shit was sick.
God.
I guess that's a weird place to play video games at your orthodontist.
Oh, at your orthodontist for sure. Absolutely. Got a couple more short ones here, and then we'll wrap it up here.
Oh, thank you, Patrick. Patrick found it. The VECTORMAN. Thank you.
Yes, thank you for the VECTORMAN mod for Smash. That's VECTORMAN. Yeah. There he is, fighting Sonic, like you do. It seems like it's just a Samus skin, which it's kind of similar.
Yeah, shooting.
November 2017. I don't know what's been updated to this.
That's true. Maybe it's been updated up. That's true. There's some unique attacks. These feel like this is some VECTORMAN shit. Yeah, absolutely. The little twirl, sure. Terrell writes in, I want to throw my submission in for the weird food rituals conversation. Whenever I'm eating pizza, I always do the following. If I plan on putting more than one slice on my plate or napkin, etc., I will take my first slice out of the pizza box and immediately bite into it before placing it on my plate. Only then do I proceed to take my second slice. I always bite into the first slice pre-plating. If I'm only taking out one slice from the box, then I do not bite it. Thanks for everything, Terrell from PA.
Is this like a territory marking?
Yeah, like
that's what it feels like. This is my pizza.
Just making sure it's good. Do you really want to? I guess you've already decided to at that point, huh? Shit.
See, when I get a pizza, I look at it, I identify all the slices I want, but I only take one at a time. But I take a bite out of all the future slices I would like to take, and then just leave those
them in the
on
box?
the pizza.
All right. Mm-hmm. Horrible.
God.
Can you imagine
if you just looked at it? It's like, why are there all these bites? Those are mine.
Those are mine.
I like the corner pieces, and I just like to make sure that no one takes them.
I could never take more than... That's not true. It depends on the event and the situation.
Sure.
I think there are situations where you're supposed to take one slice at a time and situations where you're supposed to take two slices at a time. Those are different situations.
How many boxes are on deck?
How many boxes are on deck?
Absolutely helps that decision.
Is it a business event or like a family event?
Sure.
Does it look like other people are really... Do you know other people are hungry?
Right.
Because like I think about like E3 events where like Judges Week events, especially where I'm like, I know we haven't had a meal in 7 hours. I'm not going to be the person who takes two slices right away here because we're all fucking hungry. We should all make sure we're like getting what we need.
Right.
And in those situations, I've seen people take 3 slices.
God damn.
And that is, you can't. You're not allowed.
Was there
pizza's going to get colder.
Ratio-wise, was there enough like extra pizza that's okay still? Maybe
it's hard to tell in events like that because
Sure.
you get to a certain amount of people and you stop being able to count. You know what I mean?
Right, totally.
Like I can tell you if there's enough pizza for 5 people. Can I tell you if there's enough pizza for 15 people? What's the difference between enough pizza for 15 to 20 people? There's a difference. There is some amount of pizza that is not enough for 20 but is enough for 15. I couldn't tell you what it is. I feel
like it's not a linear like
Do you think it like it curves? It curves somehow, or it
just because
I feel like there's
it almost feels like depending on how much extra pizza there is, people will then also be more brazen, even if there are more people.
That's true. Also, we have to talk about topping situations.
Right.
I will if I've had enough. If I've had like okay, that's enough to eat to carry me through to the next meal, but I'm not really full or whatever. And there's a lot of pizza left. I tend to not just take a plain slice of pizza. If I'm really hungry, I'll take that plain slice of pizza to like fill me up. But I'd rather have toppings. And if there's toppings, I'm like, yeah, I'll take one more slice if there's enough to go around. You know what I mean?
See, I take like the first slice to satiate the hunger, and then you try to scope out, well, what is the one that people aren't in, like if I'm hungry. So I'm like, okay, what is the pizza that people are just avoiding, and there's more of it? Am I okay with that one? And then I'll just take as much as I want. It's like, all right, people just don't want sausage today. That's fine. You've chosen to not touch the sausage. I am now taking 3 sausage slices and moving on with my life.
Even the vegan ones, though? Not because they're bad, just because they're so specialized. I feel like, you know what? If there's like,
I wouldn't want it.
If there's half a pizza left, let it go to the one vegan person to take home.
Yeah, that's ordered for a person. Yeah. Like I think it's rare that's like, well, we got the sausage pizza for Patrick.
That motherfucker. We'll live in that world.
He won't eat anything else.
The Republicans say we're moving towards that world every day. You're gonna get ostracized for your love of meats.
So the thing I think of with pizza is that occasionally, like if my wife and I don't have time to make food at home during COVID, like you just put in a frozen pizza, something from Costco. And the thing is though, if I do that by myself, like I'll eat that whole thing. Like not a problem.
What is it about frozen pizza that is like you can eat a whole thing? Even though if I got a regular pizza that size, I don't.
And I'm not even. I don't think I'm even trying that hard.
Yeah, you just done.
It's just gone. But then when we make it for lunch, we're not making 2. Like my wife makes it. She's like, we split it, and then I'm looking at that pizza, going like, but I normally eat the whole thing.
Do you feel like I could eat more pizza when you finish half of it? Or are you good?
Like I'm fine because usually we buff it with we get to put a buff on that pizza with the salad or something like that. And so you get a little filling. But I do think about it. I'm like, am I supposed to feel bad about this, or am I impressed?
What do you do in a situation? I have a hypothetical pizza situation.
All right,
you're in a situation where you show up. The only pizza left. You show up to an event where it's expected you eat. Where like you're supposed to be there, and people know you're hungry. But whatever happens, you know what? I'm gonna pull the Band-Aid off. Up 2 years ago, 3 years ago. When was it the first time I almost quit before I quit? Whatever that time.
Where do you want to begin, Austin?
Where do we want to? When do we want to start? There was a real touch and go moment there where I was in deep negotiations. Shout outs to everyone who was at Waypoint at the time for like sticking through it, and we could feel that there were some like layoffs coming up. I was trying to like make sure that didn't hit us too hard, but also I was trying to decide if I wanted to stay or go, period. We came to a positive conclusion. Everyone was, we all kept our jobs. I stayed. And to celebrate, Joel Fowler, who was here at the time, shout out to Joel, ordered a bunch of pizza. It was like, we're going to go play FIFA on the big screen. Me and some other people, like Trey and some other people who were like, not part of this conversation at all, but just like, come down and hang out and get pizza. But Cado, you, me, and Natalie still had some work to do that day. Yeah. You had to finish editing a podcast, maybe. Natalie was finishing something. We were all like finishing the day. And by the time we got down there was just buffalo and blue cheese. Buffalo chicken and blue cheese pizza left.
Yep.
I can taste it still in the right here in my fucking throat. And I hated it. But there was the I don't like blue cheese. And like I can tell you I don't like blue cheese. I've tried blue cheese enough to know I don't like it. And that pizza just wasn't very good because all the other slices were gone already. Yeah. But I was like, it was also just
at that edge of like, oh, this is not warm anymore.
It was not warm. It was cold by the time we finished our work and got down there. But it's like, do you eat the pizza? What do you do when you step into a room and someone's got you pizza? Been like, oh yeah, I'm going to get pizza for everybody. This is your dinner today. But the slices you want are all gone. Do you grin and bear it and eat a bad slice or a slice you don't want? Or do you just say, oh, no, I'm good. I have different plans for food, actually.
It depends. Like, if
dietary thing. If you're a vegetarian, there are a bunch of vegetarian slices you think look bad, for instance, in this scenario.
You're not going to do something that's going to make you sick. It's just a taste thing. But, I don't like real fancy pizza. Like, I'm like pretty basic and really don't if the option was to not eat or eat a slice of pizza with pineapple on it, like I'm good. Like I'll just go find peanuts and I'll put those in my mouth and I'll find a candy bar to like use sugar to suppress my. I like pineapple. Love pineapple. Pineapple smoothies, pineapple like as a fruit, like love it. Just don't want that pizza. On my pizza. Yeah. And that would be enough. Like that would be one of the things that you're like, I'm good. Because you can't, there are some toppings you can kind of like comfortably remove. And even if there's a little bit left of it, like you can kind of fumble through the rest of the slice and, get through it. I don't think you can like remove pineapple from a pizza slice and not have enough like I would still taste the pineapple juice on the bites, and it would ruin the experience to the point that I didn't want to engage.
God. I can't. If I don't like something, it's like generally to the point where I can't stomach it. Right? Like in that situation, I opened that. I remember opening that box and being like, "Oh, blue cheese." Like I will straight up gag if I put blue cheese in my mouth. Like I can't get it down. Like
you can't do it. Yeah, you can't do it.
And so I will just be honest, be like, I'm sorry. Like I can't. I just really don't like it. I mean, that's fine. Thanks for the offer.
We figured it out though. Cado, you mean now we ended up going to get like Korean barbecue that night?
Yeah, we went to Korean barbecue to a place that we can never return again.
Yeah.
But that was
the food
fun.
was good.
Yeah.
But we heard some dirt about that place.
Yeah, which was real unfortunate. We heard it like the day after.
Like coincidentally, it was one of those things you're like, damn, that meal was really good last night.
Yeah.
And then someone was like, I feel like it was unrelated. Maybe it wasn't. Maybe Joel was like, oh, you went here. But I feel like it was unrelated. Someone was like, oh, by the way, did you know that place is terrible for reasons XYZ?
Yeah. Went to a bar. It
happens like
played some ping pong. Lost a ping pong
really
ball.
Cool dive. That's true.
Yeah,
that's true. We played ping pong. Not beer pong. Just
ping pong. Yeah.
Outside.
While drunk.
It was cold, but like not that cold.
No, yeah. It was good.
Good day. That was a good day. It was like it was. Yeah, it's January. Who cares? We'll drink outside.
Yeah.
Oh.
Good times.
It feels like a lifetime ago.
Yeah.
All right,
Office?
I'm gonna read this last
what
one.
Office?
This is seriously. Unsigned from Croatia. Hello from Croatia. On the topic of playing video games in places you definitely shouldn't be playing them, I play video games at work all the damn time. I'm 21 and I work in a copier shop, a photocopy place, whatever you call those. Because of COVID, one of our locations, the one I usually work at, has had little to no traffic and it gets pretty boring. So my solution was, let's install Parsec. I now regularly use it and found that the games like Slay the Spire, where you don't need precise movements, work best. I also tried playing Sea of Thieves, and it works. Sometimes I'll let my boat slowly sail as I serve a customer, or as my boss likes to call them, a client, and then switching back to the Parsec window just to see where I ended up. It's been pretty fun, and sometimes I get too immersed that someone comes in and surprises me. Several times my boss would randomly walk in. He likes to do this to ask if there is work and why I'm not working when there's no customers. Classic boss shit. And almost caught me several times. A couple of times he asked me, "Are you playing games at work?" And I just brushed it off and said no. I also sometimes use Parsec to hang out in the Waypoint Discord stream. But how do you chat with other people, you ask? I have voice meter set up so that I just load text to speech in my browser and send the browser audio through the device I use as a mic on Discord. It's fun at times. Sorry for the long email. Thanks for the pod. Stay safe. Fantastic.
Amazing.
You're living it up.
Yeah. This
is real shit. So
I had
good job.
I think I already said this, but I had a similar situation where it was like a desk type job.
Yeah.
I had multiple of those through college, and one of them was the photo like area person. I had an official name that I cannot remember anymore, but basically it was like I would go open the dark rooms in the morning, and then be there for when people needed to check out equipment. But there was a lot of downtime in the middle.
Sure.
And it was the year that Dota dropped, and the year that I put 700 hours into Dota. And it was like usually there was enough gap that I would be able to get like a full game in before anyone came around again.
I'm sorry, I found one more, and I have to read this one. This is Matthew. This will be our last one. Hey y'all, I was listening to the fortune cookie talk from the paper eaters in the last episode of Waypoint Radio. I've sort of bemusedly listened to the odd behaviors people have around the eating of fortune cookies as if it couldn't apply to me. But I realized just now that I actually have some of my own. Often the listeners talk about their rituals of respect for the fortune cookie, even though they supposedly don't believe in them. I have rituals of rejection. I will never read my fortunes. I crack open the cookie, place the fortune on the table, push it away from me slightly, then I eat the cookie. There's a couple of reasons here. Fortunes are quote unquote stupid. They're usually pretty meaningless anyway, etc. However, in my heart, I know that fortune is mine, and I'm just refusing to acknowledge it. Whenever someone at the table picks up my fortune and reads it, I get annoyed because they're sharing my fortune with others and with me. It's like they're invading my privacy, even as I tell myself that fortunes are stupid and I don't care. I have similar behaviors around horoscopes. I refuse to learn what they mean because I know that I'll start using them to categorize people as I come across them, even if I don't want to. Do y'all have any rituals of disrespect or rejection? Thanks for the pods.
That's hyper specific, and the reader has some.
You're working
some
through
things
it,
to work out. I think actually, maybe.
Yeah. I would say this is an opportunity for you to lean in and start looking at your fortunes,
Right.
because you're not performing true rejection. This is what I would actually say. If you want to reject the fortune, you have to read the fortune.
Right. This is just avoidance.
You have to know what you're rejecting. Yeah,
yes,
exactly.
Exactly. If you want to say the horoscope shit is fake, which it's fake, ask me what my rising signs. I have it all. I have an app that'll tell me all that shit, and I read it every now and then, even though it's all completely fake. You have to know it to reject it,
Right.
And otherwise, yeah, it's avoidance. It's you're not. I'm not going to give you the credit of rejecting it. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
it's
you're
easy to reject
circumventing-
things. It's easy to be a monk on a mountain somewhere rejecting pop culture, but if you're living in it, you got to face it head on, and you know. Then I'll give you credit for rejecting it. Alternatively, develop like a healthier distance from it, where you can have a fun meal with friends and look at your fortune and be like, "Oh, this one says I'm going to have a nice week," and then move on, and it's fine. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, don't be in a situation where like your friends have to explain to the new person who came to dinner that you don't read his fucking fortune because he'll get up and leave.
Ritual of
the closest
rejection.
thing I can think of to answering this question is, I guess this doesn't happen as much anymore, but like I remember specifically the first time I went to Thanksgiving with my wife's side. We went to go. It was like a 6-hour drive. We went to Nebraska to go visit them. Like Thanksgiving is like a big deal in their family, and I'm sure people have had similar instances to something like this. It isn't even related to like meeting like, you know, relatives for the first time, but is like when someone points out like a big spread of food is out, maybe even a smaller spread, and someone like points out that something is special. Like, and the implication then there is like, well, everyone that's getting food is supposed to engage with that food. Like, oh, this is like a special thing. Like, and so in this case, it was my wife's grandmother. There's like this. I can't even remember it because I've used my brain to like just like blot it out. But it was this creamy something or creamy corn something, and it's like her specialty. Shit looks disgusting. Like want just absolutely nothing to do with it. Like it is aesthetically unpleasing. It's the kind of thing where like I know when it goes in my mouth, I'm gonna be like feel it slowly sliding down my throat. I know it's come out of a can. I was told it comes out of a can. Part of the pitch was that it comes out of a can.
Why is it special then?
I don't remember what was done to it. It was I don't know. But I just think I remember
from Twin Peaks. This is the hell stuff.
My wife being like, you have to put a little on your plate. I was like, why? She's like, just come on, like put a little on your plate. And I did, and it was like one of those situations where it's like there was at least enough food that I could kind of like squish it in with the other food, and like it overpowered the flavor palette.
So you did. You had some. You mixed it in.
Yeah, because I was a good boyfriend, and this meant something to my then girlfriend, now wife, and I was like, all right, I'm this is just a thing I'm gonna do. Yeah. Of course, now now my wife and I've been together for like 15 plus years. She now specifically asks for it to be made and has made it known that I really like this food.
No.
And so when we show up, her grandmother, still around, was like, oh, hey, Katie told me like I made this for you. And thus now I have to engage in the ritual on purpose because it has become
what a troll
that I enjoy. And the rest of the family knows I don't enjoy it. Grandma's the only one who's been left out of this joke. It's very good. I give my wife credit. Like, it's extremely funny. Because I know that every time we go...
Patrick, you deserve your wife. This is perfect.
I do. She's great. Yeah, there's a reason we made it this far.
Shout outs to Katie.
Yeah, no, she's a good one. And so that is now been spared the last couple, we didn't go the year before. I think she was pregnant.
And then, double helping next time we go.
I know. Yeah. Oh yeah. Believe it. It's just the whole spread's just going to be the creamy canned corn garbage. But hopefully Grandma's not listening to the pod.
Oh yeah,
she made it 2 hours and 40 minutes into episode 900.
Through roguelike discourse, through talking about the difference between visual novels and adventure games according to the 30-year-old Japanese genre conventions.
You never know. That lady plays Skyrim on the internet.
There you go. Wait, on the internet? Oh, you're saying that one lady on the internet?
Yeah,
I thought you meant that the grandma in question.
No, she does
played
not.
Skyrim on the internet. I was like, okay, well now we're getting into it. All right, now there's a chance.
No, that's the closest I could think of.
All right, that's gonna do it for us. Thank you so much for listening to this giant-sized epised. We'll be back.
Whoops.
Yeah, whoops. Seriously, whoops. Yeah, I didn't mean to do all that. We'll be back next week with more. Gaming@vice.com is the email address, as we said before. Find me on Twitter, twitter.com/Austin_Walker. Where can people find you, Cado?
At @A_Cado_appears.
Patrick.
At Patrick Klepek.
You can find everything we do, twitter.com/waypoint, waypoint.vice.com, where you can find Patrick's write-up of Returnal. You can find Cado's write-up of Pokemon Snap. You can find a Cameron Kunzelman defense of the new Mortal Kombat movie.
I saw that my own website undermined it.
Yeah.
Well, you can find Rob Zachney review, it seems, of Rome Total War, the remake that just dropped that I didn't even know was coming out. You could find an 8-year journey to solve an obscure Chibi Robo fan theory from Patrick 2 years ago.
Out here justifying my salary every day.
Classic headline. The blank year journey to solve a blank game blank theory. 100%.
Yeah, eventually someone was like, you could probably just put out a book of all this stuff. I was like, well, I don't own any of these articles, but yes.
Dude, I was thinking about that yesterday. I was thinking about like, damn, I would love to have a book of like my favorite shit I've written. And then like the process to get to license
like
back
you can
all
do that.
Work.
Like people do
get
like the ability to like, but that just seems like such a pain in the ass.
Yeah, I've been thinking. I'm like, is that worth whatever that hassle is? And basically, I'm sure you lose all the money in the licensing. Like you just,
right.
You know,
just so I can put out a PDF and like a low run. Like no, probably not.
Exactly. Anyway, that's going to do it for us. Thank you to Bowen for letting us use the track "Miss You" off the EP Panel Machine. Find out more about that. Waypoint.zone/BOEN. We will see you next week. Be safe. I hope the beginning of May is good for everybody. Until then, fuck capitalism. Go home. Peace.
Totally. Yoko should write a book, is what I've learned.
I think he has. I think he's written a bunch.
Probably, but I mean, like...
Yeah, yes, just, Go, like, that should be a main thing. Yeah. All right.
Give me an ebook.
God, I would read a NieR ebook. I would.
A NieR book.
A NieR book. NieR book. All right.
That's how you warm up before a podcast. NieR book.
NieR book.
NieR book.
Replicant.
Yeah.
Returnal. Replicant.
God.
NieR book.
Pokemon Snap.
This just sounds like this just sounds like my 1-year-old starting to say words. I'm gonna start calling my daughter.
Well, now you can't use this.
No, he can. It's gonna be. It's after release.
It's out.
Unless you think that's a spoiler, and then people shouldn't know about.
No, it's fine. Nobody cares about.
Can you do this though? Can you put this in? But I need you to bleep it. Because the people can't know. Yeah. Like I just
okay.
You know what?
Sure.
I know you think but I think you need to bleep it.
Great.
There's the Claymore of Pokemon of new Pokemon Snap. All right. Got that going. Got this going. Got this going. Time.is. Happy Dance Day. Time to dance.
Oh. Can't see it, but I'm dancing.
But you're dancing. 28. All right. 393, Cado.
Yeah. Palindrome.
It is a palindrome. It is.